to enjoy snuggling up next to me on the couch at night. He'd purr while I scratched behind his ears. I'm sure I was just filler until Amber was here full-time. I just needed to remember to keep my bedroom door closed at all times, or Polly and Porky would be toast. Spaz was a 7-year-old tabby given to Amber by our dad when she graduated middle school. She loved that cat, and Spaz was part of the package deal. I got Amber, I got Spaz. Only one more day of living here alone remained. Beginning Saturday, Amber would be my roommate for the foreseeable future. I was pretty sure Melissa would call early, and we'd be out looking at condos for most of the afternoon. Mom called as I drove home. She said she'd reserved a part of the back room at Stanley's for my birthday dinner. Even though there would be just 4 of us, she wanted to bring a cake and my birthday gifts along. We'd have that private area for gift opening, picture-taking, and cake eating after our meal. I agreed that Amber and I would meet her and Bruce at 6:30. I started the oven and popped a frozen lasagna dinner on the center rack. It had 30 minutes to go. Meanwhile, I stripped the bed in what used to be the guest room, even though we never had overnight guests. This was Amber's bedroom now, and I wanted a fresh-smelling set of sheets ready for her first night there. Spaz nuzzled up to my legs as I pulled the fitted sheet off, gathered the pillowcases and the sheets, and put them in the washer. I looked through the linen closet, and the set of peach-colored sheets caught my eye. They would be perfect for Amber. Lance had always thought they looked too girlish for a bed a man slept in, and over time they got pushed farther back in the closet. The bed was made, and my meal was ready. The timer beeped, and I pulled out the lasagna. I sat on the couch with my meal, a big no-no back in my married days, and enjoyed dinner over my favorite cop show and a glass of red wine. I was hoping a few glasses of wine would help me sleep soundly. I made a quick call to Amber at work just to check up on her. "Hey, sis, how's work?" "It's all good. We're pretty busy. There's a new guy that's been shining around. I think he's crushing on me. I'm the only person he talks to, but it makes time go faster." "That sounds nice." "Yeah, he's okay, but way too old for me. Anyway, I have people waiting for their drinks. Gotta go." "Okay, night, sis." I took my glass of wine and went to watch TV in bed. After a half hour, I turned off the light. My buzzing phone woke me. I slapped at the light and sat up. The screen on my phone showed Amber was calling, and it was after 2 in the morning. She had just closed the bar. "Sis, what's up?" I asked, already concerned. Amber never called this late. She knew I was an early riser. "I think somebody is following me, Jade." "What?" "I'm usually the last one out when I'm on the closing shift. Tommy and Brian left about 20 minutes ago. I locked up and set the alarm. I pulled out of the parking lot a few minutes ago, and suddenly somebody was right on my bumper. The same thing happened when I left your place last night." "Last night? Why didn't you tell me?" "I'm telling you now. I wasn't that freaked out last night, but 2 nights in a row?" "Amber, drive to the sheriff's department right now. I'll call Detective Jameson and tell him to meet you outside. Pull right up to the door. Don't get out of your vehicle unless he's waiting for you. Do you understand me?" "Yes, I understand." "Call me back the second you're with Jameson." "Okay." I hung up and called Jameson immediately. I told him what kind of vehicle Amber had and when she should arrive. I calculated that if she'd just left Joey's, she should be at the station in 10 minutes, give or take a stoplight or 2. I got up and made myself a cup of tea and paced. The phone buzzed again, startling me to almost drop my cup. "Sorry, sis, false alarm. It was Sean following me, the idiot. I asked him why he didn't just call my cell instead of stalking my car like that. He said his phone fell between the seats and he couldn't get to it. He was trying to pry it out when he noticed me leaving the parking lot. That's why he tore out after me, to get my attention." Apparently he did. Then he thought something was wrong when he saw me turn into the sheriff's department parking lot. He pulled in behind me, jumped out, and asked me if I needed help. I guess he just wanted to know if I'd go to George Webb with him for some late-night breakfast. Don't worry, sis. Detective Jameson gave him a talking to. I thanked the detective for waiting outside for me. Now I'm at George Webb. I'll have a talk with Sean myself, too, when we get inside. That was totally not cool. Sorry I woke you. Don't be sorry, honey. I want you to call any time you don't feel safe. It's the smart thing to do. Okay, I'm going back to sleep. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I went back to bed and snuggled under the blanket. The alarm buzzed loudly at 6:30. My eyes burned. They wanted to close again for another 4 hours, but that was just wishful thinking. I got up, slipped on my robe, and tapped the green button for the coffee pot. I poured a cup of kibble into Spaz's bowl and hit the shower. After dressing for the funeral, I fed the birds, closed my bedroom door, and left. Jack arrived at the station at the same time I did. As we walked in, I told him about the near scare Amber had had last night. He groaned. Kids. Jack gave me the once-over when we reached the bullpen. What? Nothing. I like the pantsuit, that's all. You look good, and the scarf's a nice touch. I smiled. Thanks. You look nice, too. We would spend a few hours doing busy work, then leave. There wasn't enough time to delve deep into anything. I set the alarm on my phone for 9 o'clock. I wanted to call Perry and ask if he'd made funeral arrangements for Elise yet. I was hoping hers would be the last funeral I'd attend for some time. I'm going to head upstairs to see if our new visitors have anything they want to talk about. You mean the meth lab rats? I laughed. The crew has a nickname already? Yeah, and I thought of the name all by myself, Jack said proudly. Really? Then maybe you should conduct the interview. Have at it, partner. I'll call Perry. Sure, why not? Maybe I can rattle their rat cage. Jack walked out of the bullpen and turned back at the doorframe and grinned. Wish me luck. You'll need it. I chuckled, pushed back my chair, got up and filled my coffee cup. I looked at the clock and turned off my phone alarm. I'd call Perry now. He answered on the third ring. Hello, Perry, it's Sergeant Monroe. I just wanted to touch base with you. Hello, Sergeant. I appreciate the call. This is hard, you know. I completely understand. Have you made arrangements yet for Elise? I'm about halfway there. I picked out a pearl white casket. Elise liked white. Do you think that sounds nice? Yes, I do. It's perfect. I'm still waiting on the death certificates before we can move forward. I guess they should be ready this afternoon. I'll arrange a funeral date with the director after that. Okay, Perry. Please keep in touch, and if you need anything, I'm just a phone call away. Thank you, Sergeant. Goodbye. I hung up and made a note on my desk calendar to check in again with him on Tuesday about the funeral. Jack was back in the bullpen by 9:30. We checked in with a lieutenant before we left, and Clayton and Billings said they were going back out to the parks today. Maybe they'd get lucky and talk to someone that knew something. We're heading out, boss, I said as I stood against the doorframe of Lieutenant Clark's office. As far as I know, Lindstrom and Colgate will be at the funeral, too. I'm sure we'll exchange new information if either of us has any. We should be back by mid-afternoon. Okay, see you both later. Jack drove our unmarked cruiser while I punched the address into my cell phone's navigation system. I think this place will be easy enough to find, but just in case. Where is it? Jack asked. I looked at my notes. It's at the intersection of Capitol Avenue and 60th Street. The entrance faces Capitol. Got it. It's called Phillips Funeral Home? Yep, that's the name. Oh yeah, duh. I forgot to tell you the latest news. I grinned. Yeah? Don't keep me in suspense. Jack looked over at me. I'm all ears. And then some, I chuckled. Anyway, Amber said in the fall she's going to change her major to criminal justice. No shit. Jack merged onto the freeway as we talked. Uh-huh. What brought that on? She wants to be like us and my pop. Get this, eventually she wants to be an FBI profiler. With 2 degrees, one in criminal justice and the other in behavioral sciences, she'd probably do really well as a profiler in time. Jack whistled. That girl is ambitious. Good for her. I'm impressed. What did your old man say? She hasn't told him yet. I think she's still figuring it out in her own head first. What do you think about me enrolling her in self-defense and gun safety courses over the summer? I think that would be a really good thing to do. She'll need the training eventually anyway. I agreed. I can't wait until tomorrow. I'm going to do my best to focus on the day with Amber and Melissa and enjoy looking at condos. I don't want to think about work for at least 24 hours. And then your birthday dinner is tomorrow night, right? Jack clicked his blinker to get off on the exit ramp. Yeah, we're going to Stanley's. That's a decent place. Okay, here we are. Jack turned into the parking lot and killed the motor. Chapter 30. The parking lot was small and packed with the type of cars one would expect from the group of guys Morris hung with. Lowered, large sedans from the 80s and 90s with limousine-style blackened windows filled the lot. Guess this is the right place, Jack smirked. I elbowed him. There's another Crown Vic. Lindstrom and Colgate must be inside. We entered through the double wooden doors. The vestibule was large, and people were milling around. I saw Terrence in the distance when we passed through the second set of doors. He stood near what looked to be a beverage station. The service wasn't set to begin for another 30 minutes, so we walked over. Mr. King, I said, my hand outstretched. Our condolences go out to your family. He shook my hand, and Jack's too. He looked around the room. Well, there isn't much family here. Looks like most folks are Morris's bunch. My cousin is over there. He pointed across the room. And Morris's grandma and grandpa on his mom's side are over there. He pointed again, to the left front side of the chapel. He turned and showed us the room behind him. Here's where the meal will be after the service. I nodded. I saw a pulpit set up ahead of the chairs and a curtain closed behind it. I was pretty certain Morris's casket sat behind that. The man Terrence introduced as Minister Johnson shook our hands, then excused himself to greet people. The funeral home staff welcomed the visitors too. I scanned the chapel for Lieutenant Colgate and Detective Lindstrom. I saw them seated about halfway back, talking to several people. I figured they were conducting a few discreet interviews. I decided to let them do their thing for now. We would catch up later. Jack and I stood back against the wall and sized up the crowd. We recognized Marshawn, Kev, James, and a few other boys that we had met in the park a few weeks back. We noticed another group standing off alone and whispering among themselves. I nudged Jack and tipped my head in their direction. I hope they aren't a rival gang here to smirk. I kept my eye on them. I was certain Lindstrom and Colgate were familiar with most of the faces in the crowd. A lot of them probably had jackets at the police station. The minister asked everyone to take a seat. Terrence and whatever relatives were in attendance sat in the front row. Jack and I shook hands with Lindstrom and Colgate and sat next to them near the back. Most everyone else sat in between. The minister probably didn't know Morris well, but he did know Terrence. He read from a sheet likely written by Terrence about Morris's good qualities and how he'd been taken too soon. A short sermon and a few prayers were recited. People walked up to the closed casket to say their final goodbyes. A photo of Morris at a younger age sat on an easel next to the casket. Terrence had mentioned he didn't have any recent photos of his nephew. A few people stayed for the luncheon, but most of Morris's acquaintances left. They didn't have a reason to stay, and it was unlikely they would sit around a table, eat lunch, and visit with the cops. Jack and I sat across from Colgate and Lindstrom. We each had a plate of food in front of us and a cup of coffee. We talked quietly and exchanged information, which took only 5 minutes. None of us had any solid leads. We told them how we took to the streets, and the only thing that rang true from talking to people was about the guy at Eddie's Tap. We were told what this man wore, and that he laughed at the news broadcast, but other than that we had nothing. The bar was a small, out-of-the-way place that didn't get a lot of business and didn't have cameras. We headed back to North Bend at 2 o'clock and pulled into the station just before 3. We updated Lieutenant Clark and went back to our desks to catch up on our busy work. So, did the boys upstairs tell you anything important this morning? I asked Jack as I shuffled through the paperwork on my desk. Nope. Their lips are sealed. The DEA shut down the meth lab in that farmhouse off of Decorah in Newburgh, but it's likely they just moved the operation somewhere else. We're always chasing the low-level punks. I want the people that are funding these labs and paying the rents. That's who we need to find. I agreed. Clayton and Billings walked in, and I gave them a questioning look. Billings shook his head. We're dealing with a ghost. No video, no eyewitnesses, no evidence, no description, no word on the street. It's pretty hard to catch someone based on that. I filed a few cases that had either been solved or dismissed, cataloged evidence that went into our evidence room, and asked Clark if we could release Elise's car. He agreed, and I called Perry to tell him. He was in no hurry to pick it up. I told him it would be parked out back inside the chain-link fence behind the evidence garage. He agreed to come by and pick it up next week. I wished everyone a quiet weekend and left at 4:30. A hot bath, 2 birds, and a cat were waiting for me at home. Chapter 31. I woke to the sounds of dishes and silverware coming out of the cabinets in the kitchen. I grabbed my cell and checked the time. 8 o'clock. I couldn't believe I slept in that late. I called Amber's phone. It rang in the kitchen, and I grinned. She'd never forgive me if I came out of the bedroom with my gun drawn and ready to fire. "Hello, sis. I'm making your birthday breakfast, so get your butt out here." "Sounds wonderful. I'll be right there." I got up, washed my face, and slipped on a pair of sweats and a t-shirt. I twisted my long hair into a rope and pinched it off with a clip at the top of my head. With my slippers on, I shuffled down the hallway to the kitchen. 2 plates with silverware and napkins, 2 glasses filled with orange juice, and 2 cups of steaming coffee sat on the table. I could get used to this, I said as I sat and took a sip. "Since when do I have orange juice?" "You didn't. I bought groceries. I don't know about you, but I don't intend to starve while I'm living here." "Cool. What's for breakfast?" She turned from the stove and grinned. Amber was beautiful. She had perfect hair, perfect teeth, and a perfect shape. Someday she'd fall in love, and I hoped it would last forever. "I'm making French toast. I know how much you love it, so hand me your plate." I grinned. "We have bread, eggs, butter, and syrup?" "Uh-huh, we do now." "Man, why didn't you move in here a year ago?" I got up and gave her a hug. "I love you, girl." "I love you too, and happy birthday. Now sit down and tell me how you like it. I put extra cinnamon in the egg and milk batter." "It's delicious." I was surprised Melissa hadn't called yet. It was closing in on 9 o'clock. I tried her cell and it went straight to voicemail. "Melissa didn't call your phone, did she?" "Nope." Amber looked at the screen. "No texts either." "That's weird. I'll shower and try her again. Did you bring your clothes with you?" "Yeah, some, but I'll grab more tomorrow. I thought food for the house was more important." I ate 4 pieces of French toast and had 2 glasses of orange juice, then headed for the shower. "I'll be ready in a half hour. I'll try Melissa again then. Maybe we can just meet her at Realty World and go from there." "Sure, I'm going to hang up some of my clothes." I tried Melissa's cell again at 10 o'clock. This time the recording said the mailbox was full. I sat on the couch and felt a little disappointed. I was sure Melissa was more responsible than that. This is really weird. I'll try the office number. I called Realty World and a female voice answered. I felt relief until the woman introduced herself as Adriana. "Hello, Adriana. My name is Jade Monroe. I have the day set aside to look at condos with Melissa. I'm surprised I haven't heard from her yet. We set it up on Tuesday afternoon, and she said she would confirm it with me this morning. We were going to start looking at condos around noon. The odd thing is her cell phone recording says her mailbox is full. Do you have any idea what's going on?" "Give me one moment, please." Through the phone line, I heard rustling and drawers opening and closing. Adriana returned to the phone. "I'm so sorry, Jade, and this is very odd. I got a text from Melissa on Tuesday night saying she had to leave town abruptly. She said she would be in touch, but come to think of it, I haven't heard a peep from her all week. I just checked her desk to see what appointments she had. I assumed she either canceled them or gave them to another realtor, but her monthly calendar is gone along with her briefcase. I have no idea if she's missed other appointments or not. Give me another second, please." I heard Adriana talking to someone else, probably another realtor in the office. She came back to the phone. "Nobody was asked to cover for her, but now that you said her mailbox is full, I'm assuming she's missed other appointments too. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what places she had lined up, but I would be happy to show you some myself. I'd hate to feel like you wasted your day by keeping it open to look at condos." I had to give it some thought. Melissa knew exactly what I was looking for. Okay. I'm only interested in 3-bedroom units, though, without yard work." "Sure, give me a second here. I'm pulling some up on my computer as we speak. You want to stay in North Bend?" "Yes, definitely." "Okay. I have 5 vacant condos and 2 brand-new models I can show you. Would you like to go ahead and take a look at them?" I breathed a sigh of relief. "Absolutely. My sister and I have been looking forward to this all week." Adriana laughed. "I know how exciting it is to look for a new home. Would you like to come to the office and leave from here?" "That sounds perfect, and we'll leave now, thank you." "Time to go?" Amber asked as she poured kibble into Spaz's bowl. "Yep, let's go enjoy the day. How about a beer at left field later?" "That sounds great. I'll even kick your butt at a game of pool." We met with Adriana, who apologized again. The whole thought of Melissa bailing on us didn't sit well with me. She didn't seem the type to leave, emergency or not, and not make arrangements with the other realtors to handle her appointments. Adriana drove as Amber and I looked over the listing sheets. "This place sounds awesome," Amber said. "It has a huge clubhouse with a workout room, a library, a business center, and an indoor pool. The split floor plan is cool, too." "Yes, that's a new development on the south side of town. It's called Ashbury Woods. It's very nice, with only 55 units. Some are even set back in the woods. Would you like to see that one first?" Amber looked pleadingly at me. I chuckled. "Sure, it sounds great." We toured a 3-bedroom unit available at the end of a cul-de-sac. It sat among oak trees and had a private balcony facing the woods behind it. It was large enough for each of us to live comfortably within our own space. The extra bedroom and den were definitely pluses. "Can we check out the clubhouse, too?" Amber asked. "Of course. The nice thing about this unit is there's a walking path right next to it. The path cuts through the woods and opens up at the clubhouse. It's a fast and beautiful shortcut. Let me show you." We took the path through the woods, and it was peaceful and serene. I could actually hear birds singing and see squirrels romping. It felt amazing to have something so quiet and relaxing right at our feet when we were still within the city limits. "This is wonderful," I said. I looked at Amber. She couldn't have wiped the smile off her face even if she'd tried. The clubhouse was large and inviting. Many residents were inside taking advantage of the workout room. Just beyond the glass doors were a hot tub and a patio with plenty of umbrella tables and grills. The Olympic-sized pool was inside, along with saunas and lockers in each restroom. A beverage bar and a large-screen TV were to the left of the pool area. "Wow." Amber and I spoke the words simultaneously. We toured 5 more units scattered throughout town, but my mind kept taking me back to the condo at Ashbury Woods. We returned to Realty World at 3 o'clock. I pulled the listing sheet out again and checked the square footage and the price for the first condo. "It looks like you really have your mind set on Ashbury Woods, don't you?" Adriana said. "It is wonderful, and at 2,000 square feet, it's almost as big as the house I have now. You know, Melissa was going to write up a description and get my house listed for sale. Do you know if she did that before she left town?" "I'll check. All I need is the address." I gave Adriana my address, and she entered it into her computer. "Sorry, it hasn't been listed yet. Did she take photos already?" "Yes, several weeks ago. I was hoping to have the house listed by now. I don't want to step on her toes by having somebody else do it. Did she upload the photos of my house into your database yet?" It doesn't appear so. I wish there was a way to get a hold of Melissa and find out when she's coming back. How long do you want to wait? Adriana asked. I'll let it go for a few more days. I'd love to put an offer on the condo, but it would have to be on a contingency basis, I guess. We can certainly do that if you like. I think Amber and I need to talk it over before I commit to anything. Are you working tomorrow, Adriana? I sure am, until 3 o'clock. Here's my card. If you'd like to put in an offer, give me a call. It's been fun working with both of you today. Thanks. Amber and I stood, shook her hand, and headed to left field. We'd discuss the condo over a beer, then go home to get ready for dinner. So, what do you think of the place? I asked as I slurped the creamy head of my oatmeal stout. I already knew the answer, but I loved seeing her happiness and hearing the excitement in Amber's voice. I really love it, Jade. I never knew something that pretty was right in town. Me either. What do you think of putting an offer in on it tomorrow before someone else sneaks in and buys it? Amber reached across the bar table and hugged me. I'd be over the moon. I noticed a thoughtful gaze on her face as she sipped her beer. What's going on in that mind of yours? I asked. Nothing important, just wondering. About what? Why Mom named us the name she did. I thought all babies were born with steel gray eyes. I laughed. Where did this come from? I don't know. It's your birthday. I was just wondering what giving birth was like, and then I thought about our names. Were you born with green eyes and me with yellow? Highly unlikely. Mom likes jewelry, and Amber and Jade seem to be what she wears most often. Don't overthink this. I'm sure there wasn't a deep-seated thought process when we were named. Mom is easy to read. I bet she wears jade tonight. We both laughed. I wanted to bring up the idea of self-defense courses with Amber. I decided to do it after the birthday party. It was time to go home and get ready for dinner. I paid the bill and got up. Let's go. We don't want Mom to have a heart attack if we're late. Chapter 32. The hostess led Amber and me to the back room at Stanley's. The large banquet room was divided into 6 sections, separated by planters filled with glossy greenery. Mom and Bruce were already there and waved when they saw us approach. Mom stood up. There's our birthday girl. Hi, honey. Our mom, Anne Summers, was dressed nicely tonight. She wore a summery sheath and had her shoulder-length black hair pulled into a sleek ponytail that just skimmed the back of her neck. She wore her signature plum-colored lipstick, which we always had to wipe off our cheeks after a kiss. Amber and I exchanged glances and smiled. Mom wore jade jewelry tonight, obviously in honor of my birthday. She kissed me, then moved on to Amber. I pulled a tissue out of my purse and wiped my cheek. Bruce looked like Bruce. He always wore a plaid cotton shirt when they went out. He never tried terribly hard to impress anyone. His shirts were dangerously snug around his ever-expanding midsection, and he usually wore jeans that looked uncomfortably tight. His short gray hair looked the same as always, although it did appear to be thinning more every time I saw him. Amber and I said hi and sat down. We didn't want his hugs that would last too long while he pressed himself against our chests. I made sure Amber sat between Mom and me so Bruce wouldn't have the opportunity to accidentally brush his knee against hers. Let's order a few drinks and catch up. After that, we'll eat. Then you can open your presents, Mom said. I'm 31, Mom. I don't really need presents and a cake. Nonsense. As long as I'm alive, my kids will have birthday parties. Maybe someday I'll even throw parties for my grandkids. Amber and I rolled our eyes. In due time, Mom. So we looked at condos today and found a beautiful one available in Ashbury Woods. It's a fairly new complex on the south side of town. I just might put an offer in on it tomorrow. That sounds wonderful, honey. Here comes the waitress, so let's order. Prime rib was Saturday night's special, and we all ordered it. I couldn't remember the last time I had prime rib, a baked potato with sour cream, and steamed vegetables. Hot bread and butter was delivered to the table first. Mom and Bruce each drank their usual, a brandy old-fashioned. I grew up in an era where all adults drank them. I was sure anyone over 60 in Wisconsin still did. The memories of my youth returned, and I smiled. I recalled sneaking around at dinner parties, plucking the speared maraschino cherries and orange slices out of our guests' brandy old-fashions and gobbling them down. "Excuse me, I'll be right back." Mom pushed back her chair and headed to the nearest waitress. They whispered to each other, and Mom returned to the table. "That was subtle," I said jokingly. "Fine, whatever. I gave them the cake when we walked in. They're going to cut it and bring it out with 31 lit candles on it. Yay! You can open your presents after that." I laughed. "Sure, no problem." The waitress arrived with a cart. The candlelit sheet cake, already cut into 3-inch squares, was placed in the center of our table. "Happy Birthday, Jade" was written in brilliant fuchsia lettering on white frosting. "Hurry, make a wish and blow out the candles." I smiled, closed my eyes, and wished that we'd catch this sick killer. I blew out the candles. The marble cake was moist and rich, and one piece was more than plenty. The gold-colored carafe of coffee was filled twice. While I opened my gifts, Bruce told us the most recent off-color jokes he'd heard at work. The waitress appeared at our table one more time. She carried a bottle of wine cradled in her arm. "Did you order wine, Mom?" I asked. The waitress spoke up before Mom could answer. "This is for the birthday girl." "Thank you, but I don't think we ordered it," I said. "It's from the gentleman at the bar, ma'am. He said to tell you happy birthday." She handed me the wine bottle, swaddled in a white linen tea towel to catch the drips, and walked away. Amber again reminded me of the fortune cookie. "Geez, sis, your fortune cookie keeps coming true. Remember what it said? A stranger will present you with a gift." Amber went on to tell Mom and Bruce how I'd received a floral arrangement at work last week. I turned the bottle to look at the label. It read, "Sweet Melissa, sweet sparkling red wine." Son of a bitch, don't touch this bottle. I ripped my badge out of my purse and leaped from my chair. I grabbed the waitress by the arm, startling her. "Show me the man that ordered the wine." "Excuse me?" I flashed my badge at her. "I'm a cop. Now where is he?" "Oh dear, right this way. He's at the bar." I raced through the main dining room and into the bar, with the waitress on my heels. "Which guy?" "Oh, that's odd. He's gone. He was standing next to that stool right there." She pointed to a bar stool that a young lady had just sat down on. "Do you see him anywhere?" The waitress scanned the bar. "Sorry, I don't." I approached the woman that had just sat down. "Excuse me, ma'am, you're going to have to get up." I raised my voice above the crowd. "I want this entire bar cleared right now. Sorry, it's a police matter." I told the bartenders not to touch anything and to get the manager out here. I turned to the waitress again. "I'll need the man's description, and do you have camera surveillance outside?" "Just at the door. It doesn't go out into the parking lot very far." I glanced around, my eyes darting from corner to corner. "What about these cameras at the bar?" "They're fake and only used as a deterrent so people don't get too crazy. This is a nice establishment." "All right, don't go anywhere." "But, ma'am, I have tables to wait on." "Not anymore. Stay put. This is a police matter." I made a call to the North Bend Police Dispatch and headed back to the banquet room. "Mom, Bruce, Amber, you're leaving now. Amber, go home with Mom. I have a policeman on the way to escort you home safely." "But—" I interrupted my mom. "No buts. You're going home and lock the doors behind you. Don't let anyone in. Do you understand me? Take everything with you except that wine. Don't touch it. Mom, please don't argue with me. Amber, you're in charge. Now go wait in the vestibule. The police officer is on his way." I called Jack. "I need you at Stanley's now. The killer was just here. Get Kyle and Dan. I need them too." Chapter 33. "Hurry. Go before you're seen." The voices had come to life once again. He laughed and exited through the delivery's driveway. "What, now you're concerned about my welfare? Aren't you always telling me when I should kill somebody?" Dime peeled out of the driveway and was long gone before the first officer arrived. He chuckled as he imagined Jade's expression when she looked at the wine label. He wished he could have seen her face. How appropriate was that? I couldn't have gotten any luckier if I had tried. A fitting birthday gift, if I do say so myself. I wouldn't want you to become too complacent on your birthday, Sergeant. He'd timed it just right. Today, Jade and her sister were supposed to look at condos with Melissa. Poor Melissa. She was incapacitated and couldn't make it. Dime knew Melissa's absence had to have bothered Jade. It was part of her training as a detective. She couldn't help herself. He doubted if her mind was entirely focused on her birthday party anyway. Bingo. What a brilliant idea the wine was. Now she'll be frantic, wondering what happened to the realtor. That little hint, the subtle nudge, would send the entire city of North Bend into a tailspin. Everyone that had to leave the restaurant would be talking about it. The search for Melissa would begin soon. He'd planned it perfectly. Melissa had been dead for 4 full days already, and she was most likely beginning to stink, especially in that closed-up barn. Blowflies laid eggs on corpses soon after death, and the eggs turned into maggots in no time. Dime was sure Melissa must be a mess by now. He grinned at the thought. I have to come up with an idea for her to be found in the next day or so. It's time for the sergeant to get busy. Dime drove home and went downstairs. He got comfortable on his wooden chair with his notebook in his lap and a Stella Artois on the side table. He turned to the dog-eared page for Melissa and filled in more information. He'd be starting a new page soon. He thought about Melissa's briefcase and the information that lay inside. He got up and walked to the bookcase. With his strong body pressed against its heavy weight, he pushed it aside and reached into the wall. He felt the briefcase handle and pulled it out. Back on the chair, he rummaged through her paperwork. He knew what he was looking for. Somebody had to be in charge of maintaining that property. If the current owners ever hoped to sell that estate, the grounds would have to look pristine. He remembered the lawn appeared due for a cutting when he was there last Tuesday. The name of the lawn service has to be in here somewhere, he thought. He read over the listing sheet, then checked a few others. It appeared that the same lawn service was retained for all of the upscale properties that were vacant. A sly grin crossed his face as he checked the names of the male realtors at Realty World. He randomly picked one, reached for his burner phone, and made the call. He knew he'd get a recorded message on a Saturday night. It was just what he wanted anyway. He left a message saying Realty World needed a groundskeeper at the property on Oriole Lane tomorrow to freshen things up. A potential buyer was coming to view the estate first thing Monday. Dime pulled the tab on another beer. He knew he would need several beers to sleep soundly that night. The anticipation he felt in hopes of the groundskeeper finding Melissa was more than exciting. He took the stairs to the first floor, shut off the basement light, and went into the living room. He turned on the TV. His favorite crime thriller was just beginning. Chapter 34. I saw my family off and spoke to the manager while I waited for Jack. I knew we wouldn't find any evidence left behind. Our killer was smarter than that. Plus, this bar and restaurant was crowded. I was certain the bar countertop had been wiped down too since the killer had left. We need the restaurant closed, sir. I know this is an inconvenience, especially on a busy Saturday night, but there's no alternative. The manager wrung his hands and groaned. I understand, but I don't even know how to go about doing that. People are waiting for their meals and... Sir, I interrupted. Whatever is ready to be served can go in doggy bags. Whatever hasn't been started isn't an issue. Give the customers rain checks. I don't care. Just get them out, now. I have a forensic team on their way, and any chance of finding evidence could be destroyed the longer people are here. Jack, Kyle, and Dan arrived and entered through the front door. By now, the place was nearly deserted. The manager, bartender, and the waitress remained in the building with me. Jade, are you okay? Jack asked when he saw us sitting at a table in the main dining room. Yeah, I'm fine. Jack, this is Leanne Frank, the waitress that spoke with our guy, the bartenders Fred Stevenson and Mike Williams, and the night shift manager of the restaurant, Brian McKinney. They shook hands. These two fellas, Kyle and Dan, are our forensic team. Leanne, Fred, and Mike, I'm going to need you to show these two everything you remember. Show them exactly where our guy stood, if he sat, what he touched, if he ordered a drink or food for himself, if he held a plate, a glass, a utensil, pulled the bar stool out, and so on. I'm sure you get the idea. Leanne, Mike, and Fred nodded and began with Dan and Kyle at the bar. I pulled Kyle aside, leaned in and whispered to him. In public, I didn't want to use the name Dime too often, fearing the media would sensationalize the story and start using Dime as the killer's moniker. The wine bottle is sitting in the banquet room. As far as I know, it was only handled by Dime, the waitress, and me. Got it, Jade. So what do you know so far? Jack asked. The only thing the waitress and bartenders remember was that he wore a baseball cap and dark green-lensed glasses. They couldn't tell his hair or eye color, and with such a crowd at the bar, they couldn't tell how tall he was. Apparently, he was shoulder to shoulder with everyone else standing around. They thought he wore a black hoodie, and they didn't see his pants. Yeah, a dark hoodie over his head would look out of place in a nice restaurant like this. He'd stand out more by wearing it up. Smart to wear a baseball cap instead. Jack looked around and pointed at the cameras. I read his mind. They're fake. Damn it. Okay, let's take a look at that bottle. We got up and I led the way to the banquet room. We walked up to the table and took a seat. The bottle remained where I had left it, still swaddled in the tea towel. The towel was wet, and the tablecloth beneath the bottle was damp. The room had been bustling with families enjoying their Saturday night less than an hour ago. Now the empty space felt ominous. Jack leaned in and read the label out loud. Sweet Melissa, sweet sparkling red wine. He whistled, ran his fingers through his hair, then squeezed his head between his hands. If that isn't a clue, I don't know what is. I agreed. We need the manager to pull up a list of how often this wine is purchased from the wholesaler, how often customers request it by the glass or by the bottle. Is it on their drink menu? I've never even heard of it. How would Dime know they sell it here? I motioned for Brian to come over. I wrote all my questions in my notepad and tore out that page. Brian. Yes, Sergeant. I need you to take care of this immediately. I handed him the piece of paper and continued my conversation with Jack. My question is, how did Dime know you'd be here tonight? I don't know, Jack, but I do know one thing. We just might have a serial killer on our hands. Jack squeezed my shoulder. We'll get him, Jade. You can count on that. Right now we need to focus on Melissa. You said she hasn't been heard from since Tuesday? That's right. According to Adriana, one of the realtors, she received a text from Melissa Tuesday night saying she had a family emergency. Nobody from the office has heard from her since. I tried calling Melissa this morning, but her mailbox was full. Adriana said her appointment calendar and her briefcase were gone. What about her family? Is she married? Does she have anyone in North Bend or Milwaukee? Apparently not. It sounds like her family lives somewhere else. I think Adriana said Iowa. That means she could have easily driven there. But if it was an emergency, she probably would have flown. We'll check the airlines. This clue with the bottle might just be a hoax to ruin your birthday. I don't know, Jade, but we have to cover all angles. What about gloves? Dime had to pay for the wine, even if he didn't actually touch the bottle, right? That's true. Hold on. I called out to Fred and Mike, the bartenders, to come over. Who actually spoke to our guy? Fred answered. I did. How did he pay for the bottle? It was prepaid over the phone with a credit card. A surprised look furrowed Jack's brows. A credit card? We need to see the receipt on that right away. Sure, I'll go find it. There's no way he'd be that careless. It must be a stolen card, I said. Fred returned a few minutes later with a credit card receipt. Here it is. The bottle was ordered at 5:30 today. We billed it to a Melissa Mately's credit card. I pressed my palms into my eyes and shook my head. Thanks, Fred. We'll need a copy of that receipt. I waited until he was out of earshot to continue. Well, Dime is definitely making a name for himself. I doubt if we're going to find Melissa alive, if we find her at all. If that's the case, he'll be officially on record as a serial killer. Kyle and Dan joined us at the table and looked at the bottle. Should we process the bottle now, Jade? Sure, go ahead. It sounds like he didn't touch it, but it's protocol. I don't know what to do about this restaurant. With the volume of patrons here tonight, is it even feasible to waste time trying to lift fingerprints that may belong to hundreds of people? I looked from face to face. Their expressions were all the same. It didn't matter if Dime was in the woods or in a bustling restaurant. He never left a trace of evidence. Has anyone called the lieutenant? I asked. Jack answered. Yeah, I did on my way in. He's expecting the 4 of us in his office first thing in the morning for a briefing. Chapter 35. A crew of 3 groundskeepers arrived at the estate on Oriole Lane at 9 a.m. One man sat atop the oversized riding mower and addressed the large areas of lawn that needed cutting. Another pushed a self-propelled mower. His job was to trim the lawn in all of the tight spots around the trees and flower beds that the large mower couldn't get close to. The last man operated the leaf blower and cleaned off the walkways, porch, deck, and the driveway area nearest the garage. A strange scent seemed to linger in the air near the barn, and Joseph, the man pushing the hand-operated mower, noticed it. The riding mower that Andy sat on was moving at too fast a clip to catch the scent. Harry, the man blowing the leaves and debris from the hard surfaces, had his own force of moving air, making the odor unnoticeable. With the front porch and sidewalk done, Harry moved on to the garage area. He adjusted the slipping shoulder straps, wiped his brow, and began blowing debris. The row of windows on the garage doors fell right at eye level. The zinging sound of a stone hitting the garage door caused Harry to turn. He hoped it hadn't left a mark. He turned off the blower, set it down, and walked over. The sun pouring through the row of windows caused something to catch his eye. Harry peered in, cupping his hands against the glass to block the sun at his back. A gold Infiniti sedan was parked inside. He rubbed his chin in thought. The place was supposed to be vacant, and he was under the assumption the owners had moved to another state. What the heck is a car like that doing here? He flagged down Joseph, the man using the push mower. Hey, man, come and take a look. There's a high-end car in the garage. They both peered through the garage windows. Harry, again, just to confirm what he'd really seen a few minutes ago. That kind of car shouldn't be parked in there. Something isn't right. Plus, there's a really foul smell coming from the barn area. Do you think somebody abandoned an animal in there and it died? Hang on. Harry went back to the porch area and looked at the front door. The lockbox was on the handle. He gave it a tug. It was locked. Something about this smells fishy to me. It's worse than fishy, man. Let's take a look in the barn. It isn't locked? Harry asked. Nope. No reason to lock it if it's empty. Let's get Andy over here. We all have to agree before we go in there. Andy had just finished the backyard and was driving the riding mower toward the tractor shed to cut a perimeter around it. He heard yelling and caught a glimpse of waving arms. He turned and headed in their direction. He disengaged the mower blade and turned the key to shut down the machine. What's up? We might have a problem, Joseph said. Andy swung his leg over the seat and dismounted the mower. What is that supposed to mean? Come take a look. Harry led the way to the garage and looked in for the 3rd time. What do you make of that? There's nobody here, is there? Andy asked. Nope, the house is locked up tight, and according to our contract, the owners moved out of state. At least that's the way it's written on our service agreement. I don't think it's legal for the realtors to keep a vehicle here. They're the only ones with access to the house or garage, Harry said. Andy chewed on that information for a minute. Yeah, we better give them a call. Joseph paused. "What about the barn?" He stared at Harry. "What's going on with the barn?" Andy asked. "There's a really bad smell coming from it, and a car like that in the garage? It doesn't feel right." "Smell?" Andy's eyes darted around. "You mean like meth lab smell?" "No, not like that. Like death." The three cautiously checked all of the house doors and peeked through the windows. They didn't want to be surprised by anyone who might be there that wasn't supposed to be. When all seemed safe, and they'd found no evidence of anyone lurking around, they headed toward the barn. The odor got stronger as they approached. "Holy crap, I smell what you mean," Andy said. He covered his nose with his sleeve and shoved the barn doors open. The stench overwhelmed them, and they backed out. Joseph vomited against the side of the building. "I'm not going in there. I think we should call the cops." Chapter 36. We gathered around the small corner table in the bullpen. A pot of coffee was halfway through the brew cycle, and it wasn't going fast enough for my liking. I gave it a glance. 6 more cups before the beep would indicate it was full. I had all of 4 hours of sleep last night. My mind was in constant motion, running like a gerbil on a wheel, as usual. My eyes burned, my brain was a ball of fuzz, and we had nothing to tell the lieutenant. "So you missed him by a couple of minutes, Jade?" "I guess so, sir, but I wouldn't have known it was him even if I was sitting at his side. We don't have an actual description. All we have is a general idea of his size and that a weird-acting guy was sitting at Eddie's tap for a few minutes." The lieutenant leaned back in his chair, causing it to creak, and focused his eyes on the ceiling. He let out a long sigh. "Let me guess, no cameras at Eddie's tap?" I answered, "Unfortunately not." "What about forensic evidence, guys? Do you think there's a gopher's chance in hell of coming up with anything at Stanley's?" "In all likelihood, sir, not really," Kyle said. "According to the staff, there were a good 40 people in the bar area and 50 more in the restaurant that probably sat at the bar prior to eating dinner." Dan added, "From what the bartenders and the waitress could remember, our guy didn't order or handle anything. No video of the bar area." "Nope." The lieutenant filled his cup and took a gulp. "This is a nightmare. A damn nightmare. How did he know where you were last night? And why would he target you, Jade?" "Sir, I have no idea. I'm guessing maybe to create more fear within our own department. Maybe he only picked me because I'm female. He could have thought I'd be more intimidated by him than a guy would." "Well, until we catch the maniac, I'm putting a deputy on you 24/7. Got it?" "Yes, sir." "When the media gets wind of this—" Peggy, our weekend dispatch officer, interrupted. "Excuse me, boss, there's a call on line 2. They said it's urgent, and they wanted to speak to the person in charge." Peggy closed the door behind her as she turned and left. "Give me a second, guys." The lieutenant picked up the receiver and pressed the button for line 2. "Hello, this is Lieutenant Clark speaking. How can I help you?" The lieutenant abruptly sat up straight. His back involuntarily stiffened. He motioned for a pen and paper. I grabbed both off my desk. "Yes, the address again? A Gold Infinity, and you said the listing agent is who?" "Got it. Don't touch anything and don't leave the scene. We'll be there in 15 minutes. He hung up. "Son of a bitch. Get Peggy back in here." Clark stood and headed for his office. Dan ran out of the room and grabbed Peggy. She came back in as the lieutenant was strapping on his shoulder holster. "Sir, what can I do for you?" "Peggy, call every patrol unit that's east of town." He handed her the piece of paper. "Get them to this address yesterday. Go. Gear up. Let's roll. Something suspicious is going on at a property listed by Melissa Maitely. Somebody ring up Jason and Doug. Tell them they're on call." "Boss, the Gold Infinity is her car." I swore under my breath as we strapped on our hardware. "Let's move. Can this weekend get any worse?" The lieutenant was out the door before the rest of us. Jack looked at me as he holstered up. "I'm afraid it just might." He looked at the clock. "In about 15 minutes. We jumped into the first cruiser in the lot and took off. 10 minutes later, we passed Eddie's tap along the highway as Jack drove east, our lights flashing and the sirens singing. He had the gas pedal pressed to the floor. My head spun back to look at the bar. Shit, didn't Mike Cole say that weird patron was at Eddie's on Tuesday evening? That's exactly what he said. And Adriana said Melissa hadn't been heard from since Tuesday night, correct? Yep. So you're thinking our killer was on his way to the house on Oriole Lane to meet with Melissa and stopped at Eddie's first for a beer? It makes sense to me. He had to pass the bar anyway. That guy has to be our killer. He stops and has a casual glass of beer before he kills someone. That's more than twisted. As Jack drove, I secured my hair into a ponytail with the elastic band on my wrist. Jack, everything about this psycho is twisted. We're going to have to interview Mike and Abe again. There has to be more about him they remember. Jack exited the highway and turned left onto Oriole Lane. About a half-mile up the road, we found the long driveway with the for sale sign in front of it and turned in. The driveway widened near the garages, offering a good number of parking spots. The groundskeeper's vehicle was near the walkway at the front of the driveway. 4 sheriff's patrol cruisers sat behind and to the right of their vehicle. We rolled in with a forensic van and 2 unmarked black cruisers. "Boys, what do we know?" Lieutenant Clark asked as he got out and slammed the car door. Jack and I exited our car right behind him, and Kyle and Dan were already at the back of the van grabbing their supplies. "Lieutenant, there's a suspicious smell coming from the barn. The garage has an abandoned vehicle inside," Deputy Silver said. "Okay, Deputy Lawrence, stay behind and get the groundskeeper's statements. Somebody call the realty office now. We need to get this house opened up. Jade, get on it." "Yes, sir." "Okay, let's go." "Sir?" "Yes, Deputy Silver." Clark stopped and turned. "The smell is really bad." "Got it." I called Realty World and talked to the first person that answered the phone. Apparently, Leon Erickson was the lucky recipient of my call. I told him to get to Oriole Lane now. It was a police matter, and in 20 minutes the front door would be broken down. I hung up, and we followed Kyle, Dan, and the lieutenant to the front of the barn. With everyone gathered, Kyle and Dan passed around the jar of Vicks before we entered the barn. The sickening odor was intense. Each person reached in, pulled out a glob of Vicks, and dabbed it under their nose before entering. The deputies entered first, with the rest of us right behind. Silver hit the lights as he passed through the door. He called back to keep the doors open. To the left and right were box stalls, most likely for horses. A tack room stood 20 feet ahead to the right of us. Since we had no idea what to expect, the deputies had their guns drawn as a cautionary measure. Jack, the lieutenant, and I followed Kyle and Dan into the tack room while the deputies kept a watchful eye for any movement on the rest of the barn. The pungent, rotting smell made our eyes water, and our gag reflexes kicked in, even with the menthol salve beneath our noses. "There's been a scuffle in here," Dan said, pointing out the disturbances in the straw strewn about. "Look over here." We hugged the edges of the room to the opposite wall, trying not to disturb the scene. Dried blood spatter and strands of blonde hair were stuck to the rough-hewn boards. We gave the wall a long look, then left the tack room. It needed to be processed. Lieutenant Clark nodded ahead. 2 deputies hugged the left stalls, and 2 hugged the right as we inched forward. The odor was getting thicker with each step. The deputies peeked over every stall gate as they got to it, their guns at the ready. Something odd caught my eye at the 3rd stall on the left. I whispered and pointed. The deputies nodded and approached what looked to be leather tied around the gate slats. Deputy Silver knelt down and peered between the slats. Holy shit. It took him a second to process what he'd just seen. He stood and looked over the gate. He waved us forward, then backed away so we could get through. Dan and Kyle peered over the gate with the lieutenant on their heels. Son of a bitch. The anger spewed out of the lieutenant's mouth. Jack approached, looked over, and held up his hand for me to stop. There's no need for you to see this, Jade. It's pretty bad. Silver, call Doug and Jason. Get them out here now. Yes, sir, I'm on it. Jack, move aside. We have a job to do. I can't let personal feelings get in the way of our investigation, I said. Kyle climbed over the gate first, and Dan handed him the camera. Kyle took close to 20 pictures before allowing us to climb over and join him on the side where Melissa sat tied to the gate and bridled. We spent a good amount of time studying the way she was propped against the gate, the bridle in her mouth and the leather strap that had likely choked the life out of her, wrapped around her neck and the gate. I wondered if there was significance to her being bridled. Her mouth was swollen and her eyes bulged from bloat. The skin was beginning to turn a shade of grayish-green. Looking at her was difficult, but we needed to get into the head of this madman. Why was he so devious and angry, and what did these innocent people do to make him choose them? Come on, let's get some fresh air and let Kyle and Dan begin processing this barn. Doug and Jason should be here soon. We went outside to talk to the groundskeepers. The sight of an approaching vehicle caught our attention. The car, a newer, sporty orange Camaro, had magnetic ads for Realty World on each door. I assumed it was Leon Erickson. "Officers, what's going on?" he asked as he parked behind the row of vehicles and rushed toward us. I extended my hand. "Mr. Erickson, I'm Sergeant Jade Monroe." I nodded to my left. "And my partner, Detective Jack Steele. We're from Washburn County Sheriff's Department." Jack shook his hand. "Mr. Erickson, we need to get inside the house right away. It's a police matter." "Yes, ma'am. Let's go." Leon entered the code for the lockbox, opened it, and pulled out the house key. He unlocked the heavy oak door and pushed it forward. "Sir, you'll have to wait outside with Deputy Lawrence. Deputy, interview Mr. Erickson and find out when Melissa was here last and with what client." "Yes, Sergeant. Sir, please step this way. Let's find a place to sit." Jack, 2 deputies, and I entered the house with our guns drawn. We split at the end of the foyer, the deputies taking the first level, Jack and I taking the staircase to the second floor. I heard the deputies call out as they cleared each room. We cleared the second floor, checked each balcony and closet. The 4 of us cleared the basement level together before we entered the garage. My breath caught in my throat when I saw the gold Infiniti parked in the 3rd stall. Jack pushed the button for that garage door. It lifted, allowing more light into the garage. With gloved hands, I opened the driver's side door and looked in. Nothing seemed amiss, and the seat appeared to be in the correct position for someone Melissa's height. A struggle hadn't taken place in the car. "Doug and Jason are here," Jack said when he saw them come up the driveway and park the coroner's van next to the forensics van. Doug approached the garage. Jason followed behind him. "Sergeant, Detective Steele, what do we have?" Jack stepped out of the garage and responded while I popped the trunk. I went to the back of the car to give it a look. "We've got a body in the horse barn, and it looks like she's been there for a while." Jack nodded toward the outbuildings. "It's the one on the right." "Okay, Jason, back the van over to the barn as close as you can," Doug said as he turned and walked toward the barn alone. Jack stuck his head in the trunk. "See anything unusual?" "No, nothing that looks out of place. We should call for the flatbed. We aren't going to drive Melissa's car back to the evidence garage." "Good idea. May as well get a head start on it. Kyle and Dan can give the car a quick once-over before they load it up. They'll likely take a few photographs here, too." Chapter 37. Doug and Jason spent a good half hour in the barn. Jack and I talked to the lieutenant near the cars as we waited. I explained to him that the oddball in Eddie's tap Tuesday evening was more than likely our killer. He had to have been on his way to the house to meet up with Melissa under false pretenses. Pretending to be an interested buyer, especially of a home worth as much money as the house on Oriole Lane, would be a great way to lure a realtor out there alone. Don't you think common sense flies out the window at the chance of a hefty commission? And who would imagine a killer using that as a ruse? Scary and dangerous people are most often pictured in bad neighborhoods, not here, I said. "Sounds logical. Do you think you got everything you could get out of the bartender and the man at the video poker machine?" Lieutenant Clark asked. "Not sure, sir, but they're both getting a second interview." Doug and Jason walked out of the barn and headed our way. "What can you tell us?" the lieutenant asked. Doug shrugged. Pretty gruesome, if I do say so myself. Body appears to be a female in her 30s. It looks like she's been here around 5 days, according to the maggots. Rigor has passed. The quantity of facial lacerations and contusions may have been enough to render her unconscious. COD was likely asphyxia. Her tongue is swollen and protruding, but I found decomposed paper in her throat, and this. Doug held out a dime in the palm of his hand. Under her tongue. Son of a bitch. Lieutenant Clark ground his fist into his eyes. Okay, bag everything up and give it to Kyle and Dan. I'll call the North Bend PD and see if their forensic lab can spare Peterson and Gundrum. I'm sure our boys could use the help. Monroe and Steele, get back to town and round those fellas up again. There has to be more they can tell us. You got it, boss. We'll head out now, I said. Jack backed our car down the driveway and out to the road. With a number of vehicles at the house, there wasn't room to turn around. Do you think my family is safe, Jack? Last night couldn't have been personal, could it? Jack exited Oriole Lane and merged onto the highway heading back to town. His expression told me he was concerned. I don't have answers. Fred told us the guy ordered the wine at 5:30. You guys got to the restaurant at 6:30. That means he didn't follow you there. He already knew where you were going. The only thing I can think of is he may have been at left field and overheard Amber and me talking. Or he knows Amber works at Joey's and heard her telling a friend what we were doing Saturday night. I swear, my brain is ready to explode. Yeah, join the crowd. I think you should call Amber and update her. She's a big girl, and if she really wants to be a cop someday, she's going to have to know what kind of people are out in the real world. We'll ask the lieutenant's opinion once he gets back at the station. Maybe you and your family ought to hole up together for the time being. I'm going to give Amber a quick call and tell her to stay at Mom's house until I get back to her later. Somebody will have to let Realty World know it was Melissa we found. Leon has no idea why he came to the house, just that it was a police matter. Jack pulled into the station and parked. The deputies can take care of that. I'll let them know to track down her next of kin, too. We have plenty on our plates already. We entered the bullpen, and I dropped to my chair. My notepad was still on my desk where I'd left it Friday night. I flipped the pages to Mike Cole's interview and read through the information again out loud. I'm going to call him right now. Mike answered on the third ring. I heard the TV playing in the background. It sounded like sports. Hello? Mike, Sergeant Monroe calling from the sheriff's department. Hello, Sergeant. Hang on a second. He left the phone and I heard the TV volume go down. Sorry about that. I have a habit of turning the volume up too high when I'm watching basketball. I guess it comes from having the bar TVs muted most of the time. Sometimes I actually like to hear the play-by-play action. I'm recording it, so we're good. Okay, what can I do for you? Mike, it's about the guy at the bar on Tuesday. Is there anything else you thought of since we spoke? Anything, even if it seems insignificant, might help us catch our killer. I stared at the notes again from the interview we had conducted at Mike's apartment. I'm not necessarily saying the man at Eddie's is him, so please don't spread that rumor. We're just checking every possible lead we can get. Sure, I understand. I did think it was odd that he mumbled to himself, almost like he was talking to somebody. The guy gave me the creeps. Oh, yeah, and he cracked his neck like 3 times in 15 minutes. That's really all I can think of, Sergeant. I wrote the additional information in my notepad and thanked Mike. I felt Jack's searing stare as he stood next to the beverage station. I looked up. Well, and do you want some coffee? Yes, please. I shook my head as if to clear the thoughts that were stirring in my mind. He added that the weirdo at the bar also mumbled to himself and cracked his neck a few times. Jack laughed and dragged his fingertips through his hair. Damn, that sounds just like Doug. You think? Whatever. People mutter all the time, at least I do, and I crack my neck. All this damn tension settles in my shoulders and neck. I've cracked it so much lately it sounds like popcorn popping. Yeah, me too. My desk phone rang. Hello, Sergeant Monroe. How may I help you? Deputy Silver? I glanced up at Jack and mouthed a thank you when he brought a fresh cup of coffee to my desk. Yes, either Adriana Cruz or Leon Erickson, the realtor that opened the house for us. Somebody has to know something about Melissa's next of kin. Neither of them has names or phone numbers of her family? All right, get her address then. We'll search her house. I'm sure we'll find something there. Thanks. I hung up. What did he say? Jack dropped down into his desk chair. Nobody at Realty World has information on Melissa's family, except that some relative lives in Iowa. Her purse, cell phone, and appointment calendar are missing. According to Adriana, Melissa normally kept all of that in her briefcase. I think we should call the boss. He can get Billings and Clayton to go through Melissa's house. Jack agreed. Relax for a few minutes. I'll call the lieutenant. Jack's conversation with the lieutenant was short. They were just finishing up at the house, and the lieutenant was heading back to the station. Kyle, Dan, Doug, and Jason were on their way back, too, with the body in the van and the car on the flatbed. 2 deputies stayed behind, and the North Bend PD offered us assistance with forensics. Their investigators had already arrived at the scene. The lieutenant said he'd make the call to Clayton and Billings and get them over to Melissa's house right away. Jack's desk phone rang a few minutes later. Brian McKinney, the manager at Stanley's, was calling. 1 second, Brian. Jack put his hand over the receiver and told me who it was. Brian, I'm going to put you on speakerphone so Sergeant Monroe can join the conversation. Go ahead and tell us what you have. Sure thing. Anyway, Sweet Melissa's Sweet Sparkling Red Wine has its own website. Apparently, their products can be ordered directly from their site by wholesalers, retailers, restaurants, and private individuals. Our daytime manager takes care of orders, so I spoke with him. I scooted my chair next to Jack's desk to make sure Brian could hear my questions. Brian, it's Sergeant Monroe here. Does your daytime manager order directly from the website or a wholesaler? Since we don't have a ton of people asking for that wine in particular, we order a case at a time off the website. Sweet Melissa is on our wine list, though, which shows up on Stanley's website along with our menu. Got it. So what you're saying is it's a dead end. You guys order directly from Sweet Melissa, plus anyone can look online to see your wine list from Stanley's website? Sorry, Sergeant, but that's really it in a nutshell. Jack thanked Brian and hung up. Chapter 38. Lieutenant Clark buzzed himself through the security door and into the bullpen. He turned the wand on the blinds. The glaring afternoon sun had already come around the building. Jade, I need you to gather your family together later and have them stay at your house for the time being. I'll station 2 deputies on your residence, 1 during the day and 1 at night. It's all we can spare. We have to find this maniac, even if it means working around the clock. We still need to come and go, boss. We all have jobs. Understood, and I'm sure you'll explain to your family how important it is for them to watch their backs at all times. If anything seems off or someone looks suspicious, I expect an immediate phone call to the officer I'm assigning to you. I want your family members to have his contact information. I'd prefer it if everyone took time off and stayed put, but that's your call. I want to work, Lieutenant. We need everyone on this case, don't we? Lieutenant Clark sighed and scratched his neck. You're right, we do. First things first, though. We need to give a press statement. There's too much speculation out there. We want folks to be safe and keep a diligent watch on their surroundings. We have no idea who this killer is targeting. Right now, we have to come up with the best profile we can to give to the press. It's going to be tough, since we have no witnesses to anything. I'm calling Clayton and Billings in to help us brainstorm. I'll have a couple of deputies take their place searching Miss Mayley's house. Clayton and Billings arrived at the station at 2:30. The 5 of us sat in the lieutenant's office with the door closed. We racked our brains trying to come up with a suspect profile to give the media. The lieutenant pulled the whiteboard and easel out of his coat closet. I couldn't remember the last time he used it. On it, he wrote each victim's name, the chronological order of the murders, where the bodies were found, and the cause of death. Okay, it's fair game here, guys. Throw out everything you know. He waited. It seems that our murderer uses something related to the deceased to kill them, I said. Good point, Jade. So what is that telling us? That he's an opportunist, he doesn't want anything traced back to him, or he's done his homework, Jack said. We all chewed on that statement. He's strong, he has endurance, plus he must have a certain amount of charisma to get Elise and Melissa's attention. But he has a few quirks, too. Apparently the bartender at Eddie's said he cracks his neck and mumbles to himself, I added. The lieutenant nodded. Good to know. So he has some physical quirks. He's strong, smart, and careful. Clark wrote it down. He takes the victim's personal belongings, cell phones, wallets, and so on to make our job more difficult, Clayton said. Everyone is killed in a remote area where there are no cameras. Isn't it odd that he would bring Morris all the way to Washburn County, though? Melissa lived in town, yet she was found outside the city limits. Elise worked in North Bend, but he made sure she was killed out in the country, too. For some reason, he wants his victims to be outside the city jurisdiction and in our hands. The county sheriff's department, I said. Think of it. That has to be the reason. Or why would he bring Morris here instead of leaving him at the crime scene in Milwaukee? So he's taunting the sheriff's department in a way. He has to be, and he leaves that damn dime so we know it was him. You know, I just realized something. It holds true for Elise and Melissa anyway. Go on, Jack, Lieutenant Clark said. We talked about this a few weeks ago with Kyle and Dan. We were trying to figure out the connection between Morris and Elise. Then Kyle had mentioned that it might not be a connection with Morris and Elise at all. Maybe the killer is trying to get somebody's attention. He could know this person was friends with Elise or Melissa. These are targeted acts to get this person to sit up and take notice. Each of us stared at the whiteboard, giving that statement some thought. He's doing a damn good job, but I don't see where Morris fits in with any of this, I said. Clayton spoke up. Okay, let's take Morris out of the equation. Maybe he was just someone the killer wanted to hone his skills on. Bad luck, wrong place, wrong time, that sort of thing. Did Elise and Melissa know each other? Nope, Melissa wasn't on Elise's list of friends or acquaintances. She certainly wasn't Elise and Perry's realtor. They've lived in the same house for over 10 years. Then there's only one person it could be, Billings said. The connection between them is Jade. What? I suddenly felt ill and reached for my chair. I had to sit and give that statement some thought. You might be onto something, Billings, the lieutenant said. Jade, Elise was your yoga instructor. Melissa was the realtor you were working with. And now, somehow, the killer knew you were going to Stanley's, and it was your birthday. He wanted to shake you up personally and taunt you with a bottle of wine. I think we're getting somewhere. But why me? Who knows, but maybe if we put you under the microscope, we'll be able to profile our killer, Jack said. The lieutenant raised his eyebrows. Okay, let's go with that theory. Jack, take the lead. Sure. What if the killer has a beef with people in law enforcement? Maybe he's a misogynist, for Pete's sake, or what if he doesn't like authority figures, as in a female sergeant? Jack entwined his fingers behind his head as he leaned back in his chair. Let's put it all together. He doesn't like women in law enforcement that have authority over people. That fits Jade perfectly. And because he doesn't like me, he's killing people? That sounds like a stretch, Jack. Don't you have to have killer tendencies to begin with? Billings added, Maybe he does, and we just don't know it. Since he's killed 3 people that we know of, we can already consider him a serial killer. But now he's a spree killer, too. Somebody like that is even more difficult to track. The lieutenant sat down. He had already paced in front of the whiteboard for the last half hour. Okay, so we're dealing with a psychopathic spree killer. That's really gonna go over well with the public. The lieutenant let out a groan. All right, what about age, married or single, local or not? What about employment? I put him between 25 and 50 because he's strong enough to overpower people. He has enough intelligence to catch women off guard through his charm or through a ruse. He must be single to come and go at night. I'd even go so far as to say he knows how law enforcement works. He can hide in plain sight, and he always covers his tracks. He's never seen on video, and there's never a speck of trace evidence left behind. I looked at everyone and waited for input. Okay, I think we have a good enough profile to hold a press conference. I'll set something up, the lieutenant said. The phone rang on Clark's desk. Hi, Pecky. What do you have? Okay, put her through. The boss talked to Deputy Lawrence for 10 minutes while he jotted notes. He hung up. They found an address book at Melissa Mately's house. Lawrence just spoke with Melissa's mom in Iowa and told her the news. Apparently, the last time Mrs. Mately had any communication with Melissa was Tuesday around 6 p.m. Sounds like it must have taken place while she was driving to Oriole Lane, Jack said. The lieutenant responded. Well, I think we have our first actual lead. The mother said Melissa texted her. Here is the text her mom received verbatim. The lieutenant began to read. Hi, Mom. I'm on my way to show a really expensive property. This man, David Ingalls, and his family are moving here from Philadelphia. It sounds promising. I'll keep my fingers crossed. Maybe I can come and visit sooner than I thought. Love you. I nodded. That's the type of ruse we're talking about. Nobody from Philly is committing these murders. He led her on that he wanted to see the house. How could Melissa resist? The commission would be huge if she sold it. I groaned at the image. She went out there voluntarily and was probably really excited about it. Lieutenant Clark picked up his phone and called downstairs to Todd in the tech department. Todd, I need you to do a criminal database search in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin for a David Ingalls. Hell, make it a nationwide search. We can always narrow it down once we get the results. He hung up, then picked the phone up again and called Susan Adams, who wrote the sheriff's department press releases. He got her voicemail. Like most of the administrative staff, she didn't work on Sundays. Susan, Lieutenant Clark here. I need you to write a press release on the North Bend killer first thing in the morning. Meet me in my office at 10 o'clock, and I'll go over everything with you. The lieutenant checked the time on his desk clock. Okay, it's almost 5. I'll let Doug know to get the forensic dentist in here tomorrow. We aren't going to let anyone make a visual identification of Melissa and the state she's in. I'll keep in touch with the mom. Everyone, go home, get some rest, and we'll start with fresh eyes in the morning. Jade, call your family. Tell them to grab what they need and get to your house. I'm putting Collins on your home beginning at 6 o'clock. Once he's in place, I'll have him give you a call so you have his contact number. Jack and I walked out to the parking lot together. There was a chill in the air. The breeze coming from the east off Lake Michigan made me shiver. Cold or nervous? Jack asked. Both, I guess. I'm looking forward to the time when I can say I live in a sleepy little town where nothing happens. I hear you. If you need... I interrupted Jack and smiled. Thanks, but I do wear a gun, you know, and I'm a pretty good shot. Yeah, you're a tough one, Jade Monroe, I'll give you that. Actually, I was going to say if you need to talk. I nodded. Thanks, partner. Jack? Yeah? You're welcome to hang out at my place with us. Amber said they were bringing dinner over. Thanks, but I'll take a rain check. I feel like turning in early tonight. Chapter 39. Dime started a new page in his notebook. He wrote the person's name on a folder tab and pulled the sticky backside off. He pressed the tab against the outer edge of the notebook page. There, that's perfect. He had been following his next victim for a few days. Now that Melissa had been found, the cops would be busy trying to keep the community calm. He'd have free rein to carry out his next act while they were preoccupied with her. He knew his next victim's routine pretty well, and he'd put his idea into motion soon. There was no way he'd give Jade Monroe time to rest. The radio played his favorite blues channel as he relaxed on that wooden chair in the basement. The local news broke in and interrupted the music. He took a sip of beer and listened. He couldn't help smiling. The breaking news stated that a body had been discovered in a barn near the small town of North Bend. A well-known and respected local realtor was found dead earlier today just east of the city. The name wouldn't be released until the next of kin was notified. He laughed a full belly laugh. Found dead, huh? Put your generic, nondescript spin on it if you want. We wouldn't want to start a citywide panic, would we? I'll admit it would be fun, though, if John Q. Public really knew how she and the others met their demise. Dime rose and walked to the bookcase. He gave it a forceful shove to the side, then pulled his chair over and sat. With a beer in his hand, he smiled into the gaping hole in the wall, then took a sip. Chapter 40. I was more than angry. I couldn't save the lives of 2 women I knew and cared for, and 1 young man I had never met. They had no say in their demise. They were just innocent victims. Dime couldn't be left on the streets much longer. I was sure he'd strike again. I pulled into the garage and lowered the overhead door before getting out of my car. Amber, Mom, and Bruce should be here soon, and I needed to set up the guest room for Mom and Bruce. My mental energy was spent, yet I had to explain a few things to my family. They would only get the generic version, nothing more. Some information needed to stay quiet. Only law enforcement knew the way Dime killed his victims and what he used as a calling card. That bit of information had to stay within the sheriff's department. I fed Spaz and the birds. They all got hugs and kisses, yet I probably needed the affection more than they did. Amber said they were picking up dinner from Tony's and would be here by 6. She ordered 2 large pepperoni and black olive pizzas and 3 2-liter bottles of Coke. I poured myself a much-needed glass of wine and waited. I looked at the mantel clock on the shelf above my TV. The 6 o'clock chimes would sound any minute. The key turning in the front door got my attention. I needed to put on my confident sergeant face and ensure my family we'd all be fine. "Hello, sweetheart." My mom entered first and hugged me. Bruce followed with the pizzas and set them on the breakfast bar. Amber came in last, carrying the mail that had been sitting in my mailbox for who knew how long. "Here's your mail, sis. I guess my change of address hasn't kicked in yet. Looks like you got a few birthday cards mixed in with the bills." "I'll look at them later. Let's eat. I don't remember if I've eaten anything since breakfast." "Let me get the table set up. You just relax, honey. Amber, will you pour the soda and get out some plates?" "Sure, Mom." Spaz wrapped his tail around Amber's legs and meowed while she set the table. Amber chuckled. "He'll get plenty of attention after dinner, crazy cat." After we ate, I explained the situation to my family. It was in our best interest to remain in the same residence for now. We didn't have enough extra deputies to put on both houses, and although I didn't feel that I was in immediate danger, I did agree that, for whatever reason, Dime might be targeting me. Our evening consisted of me showing my family a few tactical maneuvers if they were ever caught alone and off guard. I explained to Amber that I was signing her up for self-defense courses soon. She would need to know some moves anyway if she was serious about eventually becoming a cop. "I'll even take the classes with you, sis. It never hurts to brush up on self-defense training." "Thanks, Jade. That's something I was always interested in learning. Now I have no excuse to put it off." "As long as we're on the subject, I want you to think of the type of personal handgun you'd like. Maybe tomorrow night we'll look at a few online. I'll explain which are my favorites for women and why. A pistol is going to be my gift to you for wanting to go into law enforcement. You may as well get an early start on learning how to handle your weapon. Actually, going to the gun range and practicing is a lot of fun." Amber's eyes lit up. I could tell she would be a good cop in time, and I was proud of her. "I'm really looking forward to it, Jade. Thanks." "You're welcome." We all turned in after the 10 o'clock news. There was a brief segment about a woman being discovered in a barn at a residence that was for sale, but since we hadn't disclosed any details to the press, they didn't have much to report. We said goodnight, and I closed my bedroom door, brushed my teeth, and climbed into bed. I hoped my family would sleep well. I was exhausted. Talking to someone other than Spaz, Polly, and Porky during my morning routine was nice. Bruce had already left, so Mom, Amber, and I ate breakfast together. Since Amber didn't have class until 11 o'clock, she took over the cooking detail and made each of us an omelet and toast. "I have to go. Both of you check in with Deputy Richards if and when you leave. He replaced Collins at 6 this morning." "Jade, you didn't look at your birthday cards that came in the mail," Amber said as she loaded the dishwasher. "Oh, yeah, guess I forgot." I dropped the accumulated mail in my lunch bag with intentions of chucking most of it. I'd look at the birthday cards and pitch the junk mail if I had a chance during lunch. Just as we'd thought, there wasn't anyone in the nationwide criminal database named David Ingalls. That name alerted twice, once in Kentucky and once in Oregon, but only for traffic violations and unpaid parking tickets. We gathered in an interview room at 10 o'clock with Susan Adams to go over the key points for the press conference being held later in the afternoon. Our brief description gave Susan an estimate of age, weight, and height. We added the few quirks the perpetrator had and the fact that he might wear a dark-colored hoodie. We ended with a plea to the public to call the North Bend Sheriff's Department or Police Department immediately if they saw anyone or anything that seemed suspicious. "Okay, Susan, use that information to put something together. Let me take a look at it before we go live. Let the media know the press conference will take place at 3 o'clock at the front entrance to the Sheriff's Department." Susan perused the notes she'd taken. "Sure thing, Lieutenant. I'll have this ready for you to look over in an hour." "Want to go out for lunch, Jade?" Jack asked. "Thanks, but Amber made me a sliced deli turkey sandwich." I looked in my canvas lunch bag. "Oh, and a banana. I think I'm going to like having my little sis around." "I bet you will. No problem. I'll grab a sandwich from the vending machine." I sat at my desk, pulled out my sandwich, banana, and my mail. I wanted to eat before anything went haywire. So far, in the last 2 weeks, I had lost 7 pounds. "What's that?" Clayton asked as he gnawed on a caramel chocolate bar. "Just my mail from the last few days. I haven't even thought about it lately. Amber saw it wedged in the mailbox and brought it in for me. How does Amber like living with you?" I chuckled. "I'll let you know once life is normal again. Right now, living in the same house with my mom and Bruce is far from normal." I bit into my sandwich and flipped through some of the mail. 3 pieces of junk mail were pitched before I got to the first birthday card. I tore it open and grinned at the card. My Aunt Abigail, Mom's sister in Tallahassee, Florida, had sent birthday wishes my way. The front of the card showed 2 birds sitting on a branch. I could tell this was one of those musical birthday cards, and when I opened it, the birds whistled out the happy birthday song. I laughed at its unique tackiness. "Gotta love Aunt Abigail," I said as we all chuckled. "Got another one?" Jack asked. "I guess so. It doesn't have a return address, though." I had an eerie feeling as I slipped my finger under the envelope seal and slid it across. Inside was a happy birthday card showing a cat lying on a couch. The resemblance to Spaz was remarkable. I breathed a silent sigh of relief and opened it. I stared at the handwritten words in large block letters. "Spaz is quite a lovable cat. I'd hate to see anything happen to him. Do I have your full attention now, Sergeant?" A dime was taped beneath the words. "The card." My voice caught in my throat. Jack and Clayton jumped from their chairs. I motioned for them not to touch the card. "It's from him. The son of a bitch sent me a birthday card." Chapter 41. He waited at the far end of the apartment parking lot for Lance. He could have had a lot of fun with the sergeant's ex-husband in a more secluded area along his jogging route, but Dime wanted Lance found soon. Gotta strike while the iron is hot, he thought. Sergeant Monroe wasn't going to get any rest. Dime looked forward to breaking her, putting her in her place and taking her down. She already reminded him too much of his overbearing mother. He chuckled, remembering the press conference that had been broadcast earlier. The media really tore into her and the lieutenant. She got plenty of heat from them. The entire sheriff's department did, and they don't have the slightest idea of who I am or how to catch me. Idiots. Dime watched through the windshield. Nothing yet. The voices came to life as he thought about Lance. Killing this idiot will be a piece of cake. He'll be exhausted after his run and have no energy to fight back. He'll be putty in your hands. Dime laughed loudly as he sat low in the driver's seat of his Jeep. I know, right? Street lamps lined the sidewalk every 30 feet leading to the apartment complex. He knew exactly where he would strike. Lance ran the path at River's Edge County Park, then crossed the street, ran 2 more blocks, and ended his run at the apartment. He'd cut through the area where the dumpsters were lined up, then take the sidewalk to the main entrance of Cassie's apartment building. Do it by the dumpsters. It won't take long for somebody to find him there. Yeah, that's my plan. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, Dime said in response. He hit the button on the side of his watch to check the time. He should be showing up soon. Another idiot out for a nighttime jog when there's a madman roaming the streets. He deserves death. Taking her ex down will be a great blindside for Sergeant Monroe. She definitely isn't expecting that. Dime laughed and rubbed his hands together in anticipation. A movement across the street caught his attention. Lance was walking the last few minutes of his jog. He had to cool down. He'll be stone cold soon enough. Dime chuckled at the voice talking in his head. He responded, I'll admit, your quips are pretty damn clever. The Jeep door opened quietly. Dime had sprayed the hinges earlier to make sure they didn't squeak. He pressed his body tight against the building, staying in the shadows. The hoodie concealed his face, and black gloves covered his hands. The sound of footsteps got closer. Dime peeked around the dumpster. Lance was 10 feet away and looking down at his Fitbit. Dime thumbed the button on his knife as he stepped out of the shadows, plunged the switchblade into Lance's midsection, and gave it an extra twist for good measure. Lance grunted and fell to the ground. About to hit Lance with another blow, Dime was alerted by the sound of a side door opening. He retreated into the darkness and climbed back into his Jeep. He pounded on his steering wheel as he looked in his rearview mirror. He pulled out of the parking lot, but not before the couple found Lance on the ground and saw Dime driving away. Son of a bitch! The plan was interrupted and didn't turn out as he wanted. Dime pounded on the dashboard and steering wheel again as he drove to the safety of his house and basement. Chapter 42. I found it difficult to focus while Amber and I looked at handguns online. I promised her we'd check out a few, but I couldn't get that birthday card and taunt out of my mind. I wouldn't tell my family about that, especially Amber, since the message involved Spaz. Somehow the killer knew about the cat. Jack had taken the card downstairs and given it to Kyle, but we all knew there wouldn't be any fingerprints on it. The postmark showed it was mailed from North Bend on Thursday. We sat at the desk in my bedroom, Polly and Porky happily chirping in the corner of the room. The door was closed so Spaz couldn't sneak in. Dinner was over and the kitchen was cleaned up. With my mom and sister in the house, I barely had to do anything. Mom and Bruce relaxed comfortably on the couch, each with a glass of wine, watching a made-for-TV movie. My cell phone rang at 9 o'clock. Lieutenant Clark was calling. My heart thumped triple time just from seeing his name on the screen. I knew it couldn't be good. I looked at Amber. Jade, I'm not leaving. Just answer the phone. I picked up on the third ring. Lieutenant? Jade, get to St. Joseph's Hospital right now. Apparently Lance was stabbed tonight. Jack is on his way. I'll meet you there. I jumped from the desk and instinctively put on my shoulder holster. I loaded the magazine and holstered my weapon. I put my chained badge around my neck. Jade, what's going on? Amber's eyes were filled with fear. I have to go. Lance is in the hospital. He's been stabbed. I'm going with you. Don't waste your breath arguing with me either. Fine, let's go. I told my mom that Lance had been injured and Amber was going along for moral support. I had to ask him a few questions at the hospital. In reality, I had no idea if he was conscious or near death. Oh no, honey. Are you sure you don't want Bruce and me to go with you? No, Mom, please, just stay put. We have to leave now. Amber and I reached the hospital in 15 minutes. Jack and the lieutenant were waiting at the nurses' station in intensive care. We rushed toward them. What do we know? I asked. He'll make it, Jade. Luckily, the knife didn't hit any organs. He's already out of surgery and in room 3. Jack nodded to his right. According to Cassie, Lance went on his evening jog like usual. The next thing she knew, the neighbors were pounding on her door saying he was lying outside and covered in blood. That was a couple of hours ago. It didn't occur to her to call me, or any of us earlier, I said, spewing the words. The lieutenant put his hand on my shoulder. All we know is she called the North Bend PD. Of course, they dispatched an ambulance, even though it wasn't their jurisdiction. By the time I got word, Lance was already in surgery. When will he be coherent enough to talk? I asked. The doctor said he was already coming out of anesthesia. He'll let us know when we can ask Lance a few questions. Let's wait in the visitor's lounge. Amber, how about helping me get coffee for all of us? Jack suggested. Yeah, sure. Is Cassie in the room with him? I wiped my eyes with the back of my sleeve. Lieutenant, do you think it was Dime? Yes, Cassie is in the room waiting for him to wake up. I'm not sure about Dime. I dispatched the closest deputies to the area to secure the scene and to interview everyone at the apartment building. Kyle and Dan are on their way. After we'd had 3 cups of coffee each, the doctor finally entered the lounge. He sat and spoke to us. Lieutenant Clark, always a pleasure, detectives. He shook our hands and gave Amber a smile. Mr. Keller was lucky tonight. I let out an audible sigh of relief. The doctor looked my way. Detective Monroe, you're Lance's ex-wife, correct? She's a sergeant now, Amber said. I ruffled my brows at her to hush. She looked down. Yes, I'm his ex-wife, but his attack may be part of an ongoing investigation. We'll need to question Lance if he's awake. I'm sure you're aware of the killer in the community? Lance might be able to tell us something. I understand. Luckily, his injuries weren't life-threatening. The knife just missed his intestines and hit his left oblique muscle instead. He's stitched up, but he's going to be sore for a few months. He needs rest. I'll give you 15 minutes. I thanked the doctor and he left. Amber, you're going to have to wait out here. I know, that's fine. I'll sit with her. You and Jack go ahead, Lieutenant Clark said. We passed the nurses' station and turned left at the first hallway. Room 3 was on the right. The sliders were closed and the curtain was drawn most of the way. I opened the door and pushed the curtain aside to see Cassie sitting on a chair next to Lance's bed. I nodded at her while grimacing through my teeth. Jack spoke first. Ma'am, we're going to have to question Lance privately. This is a police matter. I'm not leaving. Excuse me? I cocked my head to the right. Detective Steele just said this is a police matter, meaning we're investigating something. Either you leave voluntarily, or you leave on a gurney. Take your pick. I stared at her and smiled. Whatever. She kissed Lance's cheek, huffed, and pushed past me. Jack coughed, interrupting what I was about to call her. I approached the hospital bed. Lance, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered and finally focused on me. I forced a smile. He looked weak. Jade, what are you doing here? Where am I? You're in the hospital, man. Lance, do you remember anything? Jack asked. Jack? Yep, I'm here. Lance, tell us what you remember. You went out for a jog, right? I sat in the chair that Cassie had been on earlier. Jack stood with his notepad out. Lance pointed to the cup with ice water. I handed it to him, and he drank from the straw. I went for my normal jog after dinner. It was almost dark when I got back. Do you remember what time that was? I asked. He coughed and took another sip of water. I remember looking at my Fitbit. I think it was almost 7:30, maybe a little later. Then what happened? Jack asked. I don't know. A shadowy figure came out of nowhere. I tried to turn, and then I felt a sharp pain in my side. That's it. I must have passed out. Jack continued. That slight turn probably saved your life. So between then and now you can't remember anything? Not the people around you, the ambulance ride, arriving here, nothing? Sorry, but no. I looked up at Jack and shrugged. Okay, I guess that's all we need then. I hope you recover quickly, Lance. Jade? Yeah? Why do you think someone did this to me? I have no idea, but we're going to find out. Take care of yourself. We met up with Amber and the lieutenant again in the visitors' lounge. What do you think, boss? Should we head over to the apartment building? I asked. No, let's just go on home. Kyle called and said there wasn't any evidence at the scene. The lieutenant gave each of us a direct look. We knew he meant no dime was found, but he didn't want to give that detail away in front of Amber. He continued. The deputies interviewed everyone at the building. The couple that found Lance said an SUV of some sort pulled out of the driveway right when they walked out the front door. They couldn't tell the make, color, or plate number because the exit was obscured by the large apartment sign and shrubbery. They said the red plastic on the right taillight was broken. The brake light flashed clear when the vehicle turned out of the parking lot. That's really all they had. We can add that information to our profile if it actually was our guy. Could it have been a botched robbery by someone else? Amber asked. Doubt it. Lance didn't have anything with him except his Fitbit. Chapter 43. We parted ways with Jack and the lieutenant outside in the hospital parking lot. Amber and I headed home in silence. Why are you so quiet? She asked. Just thinking how a grown man wasn't even able to defend himself. Even though Lance and I aren't together anymore, I'd never want anything to happen to him. But Lance didn't see it coming. He was blindsided. So were the other victims. I guess the element of surprise works in our killer's favor. So you think it was him for sure? I don't know, Amber. Lance survived, but maybe it was just dumb luck. The attack was likely interrupted by the couple coming out of the building. When do you work next? I have off until Friday night. Why? Good. I'll make a call. We're going to start your self-defense classes tomorrow night. I pulled into the garage and we stepped into the quiet house. All of the lights were dimmed. Mom and Bruce had obviously turned in since it was close to midnight. In a whisper, I said goodnight to Amber and went to bed. I lay there feeling as if the safety of our city rested entirely on my shoulders. The killer was targeting me through other people and I didn't know why. Tomorrow I'd start my own profile of Dime. I'd dig into his psychotic mind and try to figure out the connection he thought he had with me. Throughout the week, we'd gone over everything we had so far. Nothing was found at the apartment complex or the barn where Melissa was killed. We concluded that the lack of the signature Dime at the apartment was only because the killer was interrupted. The attempt on Lance's life was going to be attributed to Dime, just like the rest of the attacks. We addressed the public again, asking for help in apprehending the killer. We stressed that if anyone noticed a suspicious person or activity going on, for them to call either the North Bend PD or the Sheriff's Department. We were also looking for an SUV with a possible broken right taillight. I called every auto repair shop in the county. So far, nobody had brought in an SUV that needed the right taillight replaced. A call came in from Melissa Mately's mother on Thursday. She thanked us for confirming through dental records that the body found at the barn was indeed Melissa's. Her request to have Melissa cremated and the ashes sent to Iowa was honored. I spoke to Perry Adams, too. He informed me that Elise's funeral would be held on Saturday at Myram and Frank Funeral Home here in town. I told him that a few of us would be there. Friday during lunch, I went downstairs to the tech department and asked Todd to pull up the driver's license photos of the two David Ingalls in Kentucky and Oregon on his computer. I studied their faces and noted the height, weight, and age of each man. Their descriptions didn't match the profile we had put together of Dime. I closed out the program and returned to the bullpen. Jack and I finally left for the day at 5 o'clock and headed out the door. "Do you want to go somewhere for a beer? Amber is working tonight, and Mom and Bruce said they were going out for dinner and a movie. It's just going to be Spaz, Polly, and Porky keeping me company otherwise." "Sure, I don't have any plans." "Good. I need your take on a few things that have been bothering me anyway. I'd rather keep my personal opinions just between you and me for now." "Yeah, sure." Jack gave me a concerned look. "Are you okay?" "I'm not sure. Something has been weighing heavily on my mind. Let's go somewhere quiet where we can talk." "Chelsea's?" "Yeah, I'll follow you." A crunch sounded under my shoe as I neared my car. Instinctively, I turned and looked back to see what I'd stepped on. "Jack, come here and check this out." Jack was in his car and ready to leave when he heard me call out to him. He got out. "What do you have?" I motioned him over. "Take a look." I knelt over what appeared to be broken pieces of plastic. Jack joined me and picked up a shard. "This looks like taillight plastic." I thought so too. Is there any way to tell what kind of vehicle it came from? "Probably if it was larger and had a model number on it. These few shards are pretty small." Jack scanned the parking lot. "Todd's car is still here, and so is Kyle's. Let's get their opinion." We went back inside and took the stairs to the lower level. Both men were closing up their respective doors for the night. "Hey, guys, I thought you left," Kyle said. "We almost did until I stepped on this." I held up a piece of red plastic about half the size of my pinky finger. "Is there any way to tell what kind of vehicle this came from?" Kyle took it in his hand. Todd came over and inspected it too. "Looks like a piece of taillight plastic. No numbers on it and no definite contour. I don't think it's possible, Jade." Kyle looked at Todd, waiting for his opinion. Todd shrugged. "If we had a model number, I could run it through the database. It's unlikely we could find out anything with a piece this small. Is that the largest piece you have?" "Unfortunately, yes. How about parking lot video?" Todd raised his eyebrows. "That could take forever. It's a public lot, Jade. A lot of cars come and go, and people park anywhere they want. We don't have any set time frame to look at?" "No, sorry. I'm just thinking out loud." "Okay, good night, guys. Hopefully I won't see you until Monday." I told Jack I'd follow him, and we left. Chelsea's was a quiet bar and grill at the intersection of Main Street and Poplar. I wanted to avoid the loud Friday night crowd so we could do some private brainstorming. Nothing else seemed to be working. The waitress approached our table. "Hi, folks, what can I get you?" "You hungry?" Jack asked. "Yeah, I guess so." Jack asked for 2 menus, and we each ordered a beer. "You and Amber started the self-defense classes a few nights ago, didn't you?" I grinned. "Yeah, she's a quick study, that's for sure. If I'm not careful, she'll kick my ass soon." "Doubt it, but the class is a good idea. You never know when a self-defense technique might save your life." I agreed. I began telling Jack about my concerns as we sipped our stouts. We'd already placed our food orders. "When did all of this craziness begin?" I asked to get the conversation going. 3 weeks ago that we know of." "Right. I got promoted from detective to sergeant in criminal investigations last month, and a week later the bodies started popping up in our jurisdiction. The whole female authority thing has been stuck in my head since we put together the press release." I rubbed my temples. "I'm afraid my mind has been going non-stop since." "So what does your gut tell you, Jade?" I looked around. I'm afraid to even say it out loud. Jack took a gulp of beer. "You think Doug is good for this, don't you?" I nodded, afraid my voice would crack. I cleared my throat. Apparently you do too. What do we really know about him? I mean, other than him being the ME for years. I know he's a loner and he has a chip on his shoulder about his ex-wife. He's antisocial outside of work, yet he's a good medical examiner. He's always on time and at the scenes. His whereabouts are usually accounted for. We don't know what he does when his workday is over, though. Have you ever been to his house? Never. Have you? Jack asked. Nope, and he's lived there forever. I believe that's the house he was raised in. The house belonged to his folks. Where are they now? No clue. Doug does drive an SUV, you know. Jack checked the time on his cell phone. It's 7:30. By the time we're done with dinner, it will be after 8. Do you want to do a drive-by of his house? Maybe he'll be home. Sure, but we can't just knock on his door without a reason. We don't have to. If his vehicle is parked in the driveway, we can at least check to see if the taillight is broken. We have to tread lightly. Doug is an odd duck, for sure, but we have absolutely nothing on him. We can't ruin someone's reputation based on him being weird and antisocial. He's still a very competent ME. I know, but things are coming together that can't be explained. He cracks his neck and mutters. He's probably the right build and strong enough. He's kind of weird and short-tempered at times, and he'd definitely know how to avoid detection. True, but other than the weird and short-tempered part, that could easily describe me. The waitress brought our meals, and we ate quickly. We had someplace to be. Chapter 44. Since neither of us had ever been to Doug's house, we had to go back to the station to find his address. I pulled the door handle and entered the bullpen, Jack right on my heels. Jameson and Horbeck sat at their desks doing busy work. Jameson looked up from his desk when we walked in. "What are you guys doing here?" I kept quiet, figuring Jack would take the lead. He responded for both of us as he cut through the file room. "We just need to check on an address. Brainstorming, you know?" He didn't want to get into a conversation with either of the detectives. They might ask too many questions. Horbeck's ears perked up. "Really? Need some help?" I made small talk to keep both men distracted. "No, we're good, thanks. Slow night?" I peered over Horbeck's desk to call his attention back my way. Horbeck leaned back in his chair, almost lifting the front wheels off the floor. "Yeah, quiet so far. I hope it stays that way. There is a full moon out tonight, you know." I grimaced. Ugh, don't remind me. Jack returned and gave me a nod. "See you guys later." Jameson smirked. "I hope not." We headed back to the parking lot. I looked up at the bright, full moon just because Horbeck mentioned it. I hadn't even noticed earlier, and now I hoped it wasn't a bad omen. How are we going to do this? Neither of us can leave our cars in the lot. Somebody might wonder why we aren't inside. Yeah, good point. Jack scratched his chin. "Follow me to my house. We'll leave your car there." "Got it." Jack's house was less than 10 minutes away. He lived in a 3-bedroom bungalow on Hawthorne Street. Most of those homes were built in the 40s, and they looked nice and cozy. The neighborhood was quiet, with mostly single people or empty nesters living there. Jack stopped in the street and waved me around him. He opened his window and called out, "Park in the driveway, that's fine." "Okay." I pulled in, parked, and got out. With a tap on the key fob, the car beeped, the lights flashed, and it was locked. I climbed into the passenger seat of Jack's Charger, and we were off, heading south to Jackson City. The drive would take only 15 minutes. "Here's his address." Jack handed me the slip of paper he'd written it on. "Plug it into your cell's navigation in case we ever need it again." We took the exit ramp into Jackson City. The navigation led us down several streets. We followed Main Street for 5 blocks, turned left onto Adams Street, and another left onto Temper Way. According to the navigation, his house was the 6th one on the right. Streetlights were few and far between. We were close to the edge of town, with a city park between Doug's house and the vast country farm fields to the east. Jack drove slowly, watching for Doug's address. It should be the next house on the right." Jack pointed and lowered his head to look out the passenger side window as he drove slowly forward. I felt as if I needed to whisper even though it wasn't necessary. "The house is dark," I said, whispering anyway. "Maybe he's already in bed." I checked the time. It's only 9:15. Maybe his car is in the garage. Jack parked 3 houses beyond Doug's and got out. "Where the hell are you going?" I asked, my voice becoming raspy. My mouth felt as dry as the desert. I needed water. "Wait here. I'm going to look through his garage windows to see if his car is inside." "Fine, but hurry and stay in the shadows." I unbuckled my seatbelt and turned to see him running toward Doug's house. My neck was stretched to its limits as I watched over my shoulder. The lack of streetlights didn't help my anxiety. By the time Jack passed the second house, I couldn't see him anymore. I waited and watched my surroundings. The sound of running footsteps getting closer told me Jack was returning. I watched until I saw him again and breathed a sigh of relief. "Anything?" "Nope, he isn't home." "Damn it. I'll remember to check the taillight on his vehicle Monday morning, that's for sure." I refastened my seatbelt and we headed back to North Bend. "Do you want to come in?" Jack asked when we reached his house. "It seems like your mind is going 100 miles an hour." "It is. For some reason, the name David Ingalls sticks in my craw. I don't know anyone with that name personally, but something is definitely off." "We can do a little more detective work over a beer. Come on in." "Okay, I probably can't sleep anyway." I had been in Jack's house only a handful of times and chuckled to myself how neat and clean he kept his home. His mother had taught him well. "Beer or coffee?" He headed into the kitchen and stood by the refrigerator. "Better make it a beer, unless you have decaf. I don't want to be awake all night." "No decaf in this house. I only drink leaded." I smiled. A beer sounds great. Jack reached into the refrigerator and pulled out 2 stouts from the door rack. I noticed a few items on the shelves, but most of the refrigerator was empty. "You fasting?" I asked, giving him a small grin. "Yeah, probably as much as you are. You look like you've lost a few pounds." Thanks for noticing." Jack handed me a can and a glass, then sat down across from me at the kitchen table. A can and a glass, just like Dime ordered his beer at Eddie's. I popped the tab and listened to the hiss of the cartridge in the can. The thick, creamy head was my favorite part of this rich, dark beer. "Okay, so what bothers you about the name David Ingalls?" "I'm not sure. I don't think it's actually the name that throws me. I need to write things down as we talk so I don't lose my train of thought. Got any scratch paper?" "Sure." Jack rose and went to the first drawer at the end of the kitchen cabinets. "Does everyone use the end drawer as their junk drawer?" "I do. I think it's mandatory." He handed me the pad of paper and a pen, then took a seat in the chair next to me. I wrote down the name David Ingalls. I remembered that neither of the driver's license photos of the 2 guys in the system looked at all like our suspect might look. I wrote Doug Irvin below David's name. "That's it. I know what's been bugging me this whole time. The initials are the same." I slid the sheet of paper over to Jack. "Son of a gun, Jade. I think you're on to something. Wait a minute." Jack took the pen and added M.E., as in medical examiner, after Doug's name. "What do you think? Doug Irvin, M.E. Use his initials only and see what you get." I wrote them out and got Dime. I dropped the pen to the table and rubbed my forehead. "Jack, Doug's the killer. We have to do something, but how are we going to prove it? His name and title don't automatically make him a killer. We have to run this by the lieutenant." Jack checked the time, 11 o'clock. "First, we have to get our ducks in a row. We can't present this to the lieutenant yet. Let's make an outline of sorts. We need to compare Doug to the vague descriptions of suspects we got from people. We need a motive, too. If we call the lieutenant half-cocked and try to present our weak ideas as evidence, we'll lose Doug as a suspect. It's only circumstantial at best. Jack grabbed 2 more beers. Let's get busy. We need enough to go on or we'll never get a warrant to search his house. Chapter 45. Do you think this is enough to present to the lieutenant? I squeezed my temples and handed Jack the sheets of paper we had compiled over the last few hours. We had put together a profile and possible motive, making Doug our most probable suspect. We carefully went over every bullet point we'd listed and added what we'd used as our basis for the information. I think this should do it, but what we really need is to see his vehicle. He couldn't have replaced that taillight yet unless he left the county. I called every repair shop in Washburn County and told them to flag all SUVs that come in to have the right taillight replaced. They're supposed to call us immediately, and I haven't heard anything yet. He either fixed it himself, or it's still like that. That is, if Doug really is the killer. I looked at the clock again. 2 a.m. Do you feel confident enough to call the lieutenant? Yes. Do you? Absolutely. I pulled my cell out of my purse, ready to dial the lieutenant, when it rang. Hang on, it's Amber. I told her to call me every night she closes Joey's, especially since she had that scare with Sean last week. I picked up. Hey, sis, how was your night? Busy. I made a ton of tips tonight. I swear I'm giving up on men, though. I chuckled. Really? Why's that? You're young, beautiful, and have an outgoing personality. Thanks. Anyway, remember that guy I said has been hanging out here lately? The older guy that I thought was crushing on me? Yeah, I remember you mentioning him. Did he replace you already with someone closer to his own age? Worse than that. The jerk sat here for the last 4 hours, schmoozing me up, taking up all of the time I could have been gabbing with the regulars. Plus, he was the last one to leave. I just wiped down the bar and saw that he left a measly dime as my tip. What an asshat. Son of a bitch. Amber, lock the doors and don't leave. Do you hear me? Lock the doors now. What's going on, Jade? You're freaking me out. I heard Amber through the phone line talking to someone. Hey, why are you still here? The bar is Our call abruptly ended. Amber? Amber, are you there? Amber? Shit. Jack, Dime, or Doug, or whoever the hell it is, has Amber. Jack was already on his cell talking to the night dispatch, Bob Kennedy. Bob, get everyone on patrol out to Joey's Sports Bar and Grill, now. 10:39. Tell them to move. Put out a bolo on a red Jeep. Back right taillight could be broken. We may have a possible 1031 in progress involving Jade's sister, Amber Monroe. Have Jameson and Horbeck get out there, too. Call the lieutenant. Jade and I are on our way. The normal 15-minute drive to Joey's from Jack's house took 8. Luckily, this time of night the streets were nearly empty. I tried Amber's phone over and over, but she didn't pick up. I tried to think, did she always keep it on silent, or did it actually ring? I couldn't remember. I hoped it was on silent. If Dime heard her phone ring, he would surely take it away and destroy it. We saw the red and blue flashing lights from blocks away. We pulled into Joey's parking lot. 5 cruisers were already there, along with 2 black sedans. The lieutenant pulled in right when we exited Jack's Charger. I ran to Jameson. What do we know? Sergeant, Jack, Lieutenant, we cleared the building, and there's nobody inside. Looks like a scuffle took place, though. Chairs are knocked over, and there's broken glass everywhere. I hate to say it, but Doug's Jeep is out back by the dumpsters. I ran to the back of the building, knowing my worst fears would be realized. Doug's Jeep was parked 20 feet away from the back door, beyond the garbage bins. The motion sensor light above the door flicked on when I ran past. The rear of his vehicle illuminated just enough to see that the right taillight was broken. I entered the back door, then rushed through the hallway where the restrooms were and into the main bar area. Everyone had already gone inside the building to find out what had transpired there. I nodded when I looked at Jack. Doug is definitely Dime. Lieutenant Clark ground his fist into his eyes. How could we have a psychopath right under our noses and not realize it? Son of a bitch. Jade, what does Amber drive? She has a 2012 gray Prius, but I don't know the plate number. We need everyone at the station. Her cell isn't turned off, so Todd and Billy can ping it and triangulate the location, can't they? They can pull up her license plate number, too. Already on it, Sergeant. Hopefully she keeps her locations on, or they aren't going to get anything, Jameson said. Todd and Billy should be arriving at the station any minute now. They said they'd call as soon as they had their asses planted in their chairs. Does anyone know where he may have taken her? Has Doug ever mentioned a place, somewhere that holds memories for him? Anything? I searched everyone's faces for something, any clue to Doug's whereabouts. I needed to know where he took my sister. The lieutenant's phone rang. It was Todd. Okay, hang on, Todd. Jade, what is Amber's phone number? The guys are ready. I gave Clark the number, and I paced as we waited. The lieutenant stayed on the line until Todd came back on. Yep, okay, we're on it. He hung up. They're in Jackson City. He took her to his house? Apparently so. Okay, once we hit the city limits, we go silent. Got it, everyone? We don't want to alert him we're coming. We already know what he's capable of. We nodded. Let's roll. Jack and I jumped into his Charger and led the way. 5 cruisers, Jameson, Horbeck, and the lieutenant followed Jack's car. We exited the ramp into Jackson City, and the cruisers turned their lights off and silenced their sirens. If we had any hope of getting Amber out of there safely, we had to take Doug by surprise. If he knew we were coming, all bets were off. We parked at the end of the block and got out. The cruisers fell in behind us, and Lieutenant Clark rounded us up. Okay, gear up. I want everyone wearing vests. We're going in hot and quiet. We approached the house and peeked through the garage window. Amber's car sat inside. All right, listen up. We know they're here. First, we'll surveil what we can through the windows. Deputies do a quick sweep. Check every door. See if we're lucky enough to find something unlocked. Got it, Lieutenant. Deputies Schmitz, Taylor, Drury, and Ryan checked every window and returned back to the front of the garage where we waited. No sign of movement, sir, and no sounds. There doesn't appear to be an alarm system either. All doors are locked except the double cellar doors. We're pretty sure we can breach the house through the patio doors, though. It doesn't appear that there's a pole in the track. We'll lift the door and push it aside. I can do that, I said. Okay, Jade, you and Jack take the patio door. Deputies cover the garage entrance and the cellar door. Horbeck and Jameson head to the front. I'll go with you. Jade, we'll wait for you to get inside and let us in. Everyone take your positions. Jack and I ran around to the back of the house. Together, we pressed our hands firmly against the patio door glass and lifted straight up. The panel cleared the locking mechanism and slid to the side. I peeked my head in, looked around, and listened. The door opened to the kitchen dining area. Straight ahead, beyond the kitchen, looked to be the living room. I could see the TV and the front door from my position. The house was dark. We stepped inside, hoping the floors didn't creak. Our guns were drawn, and Jack pulled out his flashlight. I followed Jack through the kitchen to the door leading into the garage. We had no idea if anyone was in there. We stepped into the darkened area. He aimed the flashlight at Amber's car. It was empty. Jack unlocked the side door, allowing Schmitz and Taylor in. I had Schmitz call over his shoulder radio for Drury and Ryan to hold their positions at the cellar entrance. Back in the house, I rounded the kitchen and crept to the front door. I let Jameson, Horbeck, and the lieutenant in. We cleared the first floor. The lieutenant whispered to us, "Did you locate the basement door?" With a nod, I motioned with a hand signal for them to follow. We grouped by the basement door and listened. A male voice sounded below us. Doug was down there doing who knew what to my sister. My heart raced, but I needed to keep my composure. We had to get Amber out of that situation. I carefully turned the knob and eased the door back toward me. The basement lights were on. I checked the stairs. They were covered with dirty old carpeting. That would help silence the sound of our movements. I took 4 steps down and knelt when I cleared the basement ceiling. I peeked around the corner, assessing what lay ahead of us. Doug stood near a bookcase, his back toward me at the far end of the room, muttering something I couldn't understand from my distance. I saw Amber sitting in a wooden chair. Her mouth was gagged, and her hands and legs were tied to the arms and feet of the chair. Her forehead was bloodied. Her eyes darted toward me when she saw our movements. I motioned for her to stay calm. Doug remained unaware of our presence as he paced in front of the bookcase. We swept in with guns drawn. He spun when he heard us. In 2 strides, he was at Amber's throat with a knife. I called out, my gun's red laser sights on his forehead. "Doug, you don't want to do this. Put the knife down. Step away from Amber. She's done nothing wrong." He laughed and spewed out his hatred for me. "There you go again, Sergeant, giving orders. Do you have any idea how sick I am of women like you? You're just like my mother, rest her soul." He laughed again. "You think you call the shots, bossing me around, telling me what to do? You stupid bitch would have been next, but your sweet sister was ripe for the picking. You see, not only do I hate women who think they have some type of authority, but I also hate shrinks. Isn't that what this sweet, innocent girl is going to school for? You're going to be a shrink, aren't you, Amber?" He jerked her head back by her hair and held the knife tighter against her throat. "Are you really prepared to die tonight, Doug?" I walked closer to him as I talked. "1 shot. That's all I need. Let her go, now." I couldn't look Amber in the face. I had to keep my eyes and weapon zeroed in on his forehead. The lieutenant spoke up. "Doug, we can get you the help you need. Back away from Amber. She's an innocent woman." "There isn't a woman alive that's innocent." Doug sneered and held his position while he pressed the knife harder against her neck. I saw blood dripping beneath the blade. The sound of a crashing door behind him made Doug turn. I had a split second to act. I squeezed the trigger. Chapter 46. He lay on the floor dead, and the nightmare was over. I holstered my gun and rushed to Amber's side. My hands shook as I tried to untie her. Jack reached out to me. "I got this, partner. Take a breath. Amber is safe." I wiped my eyes and pulled the gag from Amber's mouth while Jack released the ropes from her arms and legs. She broke down and sobbed against me. I held her tight. "I got you, honey. You're going to be okay." The lieutenant called the Jackson City EMTs, and they were en route. Amber had a gash on her head that needed to be attended. She was loaded up in the ambulance to be taken to St. Joseph's Hospital, the same place where Lance was still a patient. I stood at the back of the ambulance. "I'll be there soon, I promise. You're safe now, Amber. I'll call Mom and have her meet you at the hospital. I have to take care of a few things here, but I'll be there as quickly as I can." She held me, afraid to let go. "Guys, take good care of her. I'll be there shortly." "Yes, ma'am. Let's go." I watched as the ambulance drove away. Then I went back to the basement. "How did Drury and Ryan know when to break in the cellar door?" I asked. Taylor responded. "I held back so Doug wouldn't hear me on my radio. I knew they were positioned just outside the door. It didn't look like we were going to talk Doug down." The lieutenant nodded, and I gave them the go-ahead to kick in the door. "Thank you, all of you." I sighed and took a deep breath. We finally had time to look around. Kyle and Dan were called in to help. I stuck around for a short time as the guys gloved up and began processing the basement. I wanted to check on Amber soon, and knew I'd be whisked away for my formal processing too. I quickly scanned the basement, trying to figure out Doug's mind. A wall to our left was covered in corkboard. Newspaper articles about my promotion from detective to sergeant were pinned to the board. Clippings from every case I had ever been on, and every newspaper photo that had me in the shot were pinned to the wall. Several pictures had my face slashed. Old, yellowed newspaper clippings showed Doug's ex-wife being presented with awards as she advanced in her career. Several more newspaper articles dating back to the mid-90s told how Betty Irvin had abruptly left her job in family medicine and moved away. Her only child, Doug, had stayed in the family home to continue his college education. He was studying pathology. "What is this stuff?" I asked as we all stood there staring at the wall. Goosebumps popped up on my arms as I read a few of the articles. "Looks like Doug was a sick man," Taylor said. We continued through the room. The bar was covered with rows of prescription bottles. A still, cold Stella Artois sat on a side table. Doug's body lay on the floor next to it. Jack rubbed his head. "This place gives me the creeps. And what was he doing by that bookcase?" We walked over to take a look. The floor beneath the bookcase was scraped as if it had been moved numerous times. "This is interesting. Drury, give me a hand," Jack said. We stood back and watched as Jack and Deputy Drury put their backs into it and pushed the bookcase to the side. Behind it was a large opening in the wall. "What the hell?" Lieutenant Clark said. "Let's take a look in there." With our flashlights lit, we found Melissa's briefcase with a bag of bloody clothes. Elise's cell phone was there, along with a wallet, knife, and cell phone belonging to Morris King, in a bag with more bloody clothes and a bloody tarp. "I guess this is where he stashed everything," Jack said. "Hang on, there's something farther in. Anyone have a brighter flashlight?" Jameson handed Jack his. Jack wedged himself farther back. We could see only his feet as he inched his way in. "Holy shit. What's going on? What did you find?" "There's a bag of bones and a skull back here. They're human." Chapter 47. Our appointment with Dr. Candace White was at 10 a.m. Jack and I were led into her luxurious office on Milwaukee's east side overlooking Lake Michigan. The view from her 18th floor office was magnificent. "Detectives, please have a seat. Coffee?" I nodded and thanked her. She poured 2 cups and placed them in front of Jack and me. She already had a cup of her own on her side of the desk. She returned to her leather office chair and sat. "Yes, Doug Irvin was a patient of mine for nearly 10 years. I'm sorry to hear of his passing." She gave us each a saddened look. "And his actions. He was quite a troubled soul and quit coming to see me in February." "What was Doug diagnosed with?" I asked. She shrugged. "Just about everything, I'm afraid. He was so volatile. I knew if he stopped taking his meds, something horrible could happen. I had no idea he was Washburn County's M.E., but in hindsight, he was really a brilliant man. He was quite capable of doing just about anything. That's the problem with psychopaths. They can live among us and appear very normal. Classic examples would be Ted Bundy and the BTK killer. Doug's main problem was he hated women, a true misogynist. He told stories of how his mother used to berate him, tie him to a wooden chair in their basement, and beat him. According to Doug, he'd spend hours down there, many times without food and the ability to use the bathroom. He'd mentioned how he soiled himself and received beatings because of that, too. If any of this was true, he did live a very horrible life growing up. "Could you explain why we always found something in the mouths of his victims?" Jack asked. "Typically that's symbolic. I would imagine it was his way of silencing people, as in his mother." "Wasn't there a father in the family?" I asked. "He never spoke of one. He said his mother moved away when he was 19, but by then his mind was deeply disturbed. He was on a very strong regimen of antipsychotic drugs. Doug was an anomaly in a way. Not only was he a psychopath, but he also had delusional disorders causing borderline schizophrenia, hence the drugs. He said he heard voices in his head." I glanced at Jack. Maybe that explains the muttering. He could have been communicating with them. Jack nodded. "Weren't his treatment or prescription bills ever sent to his insurance company?" The doctor shook her head. "Doug told me he didn't work. He said he'd inherited quite a sum of money when a relative died. I imagine he didn't want a paper trail. He paid for everything by money order." We thanked the doctor and left. What are the odds that the bones behind the wall belong to Doug's mom? Jack looked at me as he pulled out of the parking garage. I'd say 100%. The DNA results should be back tomorrow. Kyle and Dan will let us know. I feel bad about missing Elise's funeral, but Perry understood. He was so relieved that this nightmare is over and he has justice for Elise. I smiled at Jack. He thanked us for the flowers. That's nice. I guess Jason will take over all of the ME duties until another one is hired. Well, I hope things stay slow for a while. It will be a welcome change to say we live in a quiet little community again. Do you want me to drop you off at home? Jack asked. Why don't you join Amber and me for lunch? She'd love it. Are you sure? Absolutely. You have time before you need to get back to the station. Are you rubbing it in? Why, because I took a week off to spend with my little sister? She can either spend the week with Mom and Bruce as she heals, or she can spend it with me. I think you know which one she chose. Anyway, she suggested the Washington house. Jack grinned. You know the offer is still on the table. I can rough Bruce up if you want. Nah, that's okay. But what are you doing over the weekend? Jack raised his eyebrows and looked at me. Why? Because we really need a big, strong guy to help us move. Jack chuckled as we got out of the car. You've got a deal, as long as you're buying lunch today. He put his arm around my shoulder. Come on, partner. I see Amber waving at us. This concludes Maniacal by C.M. Sutter, narrated by Nicole Zanzarella. Copyright 2016 by C.M. Sutter. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with C.M. Sutter and was produced in the year 2018 by Tantor Media Incorporated, a division of Recorded Books, which holds the copyright thereto. Please visit Tantor.com for more information on our growing library of unabridged audiobooks.